Hello, Mantis. Good evening or good afternoon. Okay, it's still, I think a minute to four. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's class. If you're here, please say something. You can unmute and say good afternoon, wherever you are. If it's even
Good
where you are, you can
afternoon.
hello,
Good afternoon.
welcome to class. That's
Good
nice. Ooh, let's
afternoon.
take this.
Hello, good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Okay, you're welcome. Well, we'll be starting off right away, just finishing up setup so that we'll have our cameras on. So welcome. At exactly 4 p.m. we'll kick off. We want to just say a huge welcome to everyone to this session. I think this is our first session for IP, and trust me, it's going to be an incredibly amazing session. That's one thing with the IP courses; it's always amazing. Okay, I believe you can all see me now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can see you.
Hello, good afternoon.
Sir.
Okay, amazing,
Yes, sir.
amazing. Okay, very quickly, let's move on to this. My name is Goslov Kamaloni, and I'll be your moderator for today's amazing session. Welcome to IP and Business. This should be the first, I think it should be your inaugural class for IP. How excited are you to be here? Please, just a few words. How excited are you to start off this, to kick off this amazing journey? Let me hear from Joy. Joy Nwabueze, how excited are you, please? Or Nwabuwe Think, I think, yes, thank you. Joy, how excited are you to start this journey with Jiipcc?
Okay, it's Wabuwe. That's my
Wabuwe,
name.
yes.
Yes, and I'm very excited. I've been looking forward to this amazing session, and I'm so excited. I'm very, I'm looking forward to learning a lot of things in this session today. Thank you so much.
Okay, fantastic. And one thing about Gypsy is the fact that you come craving knowledge, and Gypsy gives you 1,000 times and more of the knowledge you're craving. Okay, so quickly, welcome to our week one for the third/fourth quarter for 2024 of the JIPCC mentorship and internship program for 2024. It's going to be an awesome time. I promise you that throughout your journey on intellectual property, you're going to learn, you're going to unlearn, and of course, you're going to relearn a lot of things and amazing stuff. Today is not going to be any exception. We're going to kick off with an amazing array of mentors because here at Gypsy, we give you the best of the best. Again, welcome to IP and Business because that's where it all boils down to, how well you can run business using IP. So I'll quickly start off with introducing our mentors for today. But before I do that, I want to say a big shout out to Mr. Williams. It's always nice having him with us on the call. So Williams, good afternoon. Okay, I think he replies soon. So quickly, I want to kick off with our mentors for today. Now, this is the one name that is respected in the IP space for the great things he does. I don't know if any of you knows about the Rwanda conference coming up very soon. Yes. So we have Mr. Sand Mbakalu with us today as a mentor, and quickly I'll go through his profile. Sand Mbakalu has over 15 years experience implementing international development programs in geographical indications, that's GIs, international trade and investment, trade policy, research, policy reform, market access, monitoring and evaluation, capacity building, market linkages, and value chains. Sand's experience is cross-cutting in a complex cultural environment, applying multidimensional techniques and the entrepreneurial capability to deliver results. He's a lead technical consultant on Africa intellectual property and innovation. That's AfriPI, or AfriPI, as some would say, project and the EU EU IPO founder and funded program supporting the Nigerian government to create enabling environments to promote and protect geographical indications in Nigeria. Sand is also leading the national research project funded by the French Development Agency to identify potential geographical indications products in Nigeria. He's a current executive director of Africa International Trade and Commerce Research, an international trade firm the Africa from the African markets. Okay. Over the years, Sand and his team have been working on promoting and creating awareness of GIs in Nigeria. Some of the programs slash projects on GIs that have been implemented include organizing the National Sustainable Development of Nigeria Geographical Indications (GIs), stakeholder engagement in 2017, and the second edition of Nigerian Geographical Indication Stakeholder Dialogue in 2018, with the theme Making Nigerian GI Global, including intellectual property organization on including the most recent event, that was jointly hosted as a webinar series with the World Intellectual Property Organization on the importance of geographical indications to the sustainable development of Nigeria and many others. Sand is a current PhD student with the University of Cape Town, South Africa, holds a master's degree in MSc Business and Management from the University of Portsmouth, UK, and a BA International Trade from the University of Portsmouth, UK. Certificate in Trade Negotiations in an Era of Uncertainty from European University Institute, Italy, and many other professional capacity development certificates from WTO, UNTAD, and many other reputable institutions. Please, that's an amazing profile. Please, let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Sand. He's with us as a mentor here. So in the chat box, you can just say welcome, Mr. Sand. Okay, quickly, I'll run up to, he's a man that is in the IP space. You're not new to knowing him. I call him the Mazi of IP. You would know why, because after this session, you would concur that he is the Mazi of IP. He's a man that oozes IP. I'm talking about Max Ikongbe. Welcome, Mr. Max. So quickly on his profile, Max Ikongbe is the founder principal of Everlaw Associates. He works extensively in the fields of arbitration, ICT, technology, law, and intellectual property. Max is a facilitator on the annual Information Technology and the Law course of the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies since 2016. He has trained in advanced intellectual property law courses at the World Intellectual Property Organization Academy, and he is an accredited agent of the Nigerian Trademark and Patents Registry and has conducted IP registration business there since 2010. Welcome to the Mazi of IP. Mr. Max, you're highly welcome with us this afternoon for today's session. Okay, quickly. Ooh, another big one. Okay, I think it's a full class today.
Thank
it's
you
a
so much, as
class
always.
today. Mr. Max, really nice having you with us today. Okay, so we have another big name. I call her the goddess of IP. When I first met this lady, she wowed me, really, and then I had to just follow her through and through. I'm speaking about Amusa Shukurat Modupeola, the goddess of IP. So quickly on her profile, Shukurat is a seasoned intellectual property consultant, analyst, and educator with public sector experience. She holds a master's degree in intellectual property from the prestigious Africa University Zimbabwe in collaboration with WIPO and the Japan government. Shukurat is an alumni of the World Intellectual Property Organization, that's WIPO, a member of the WIPO International Network for IP Education, as well as a training facilitator at the Next Innovation Hub. She was a member of the planning committee for the WIPO National IP Essay Competition in 2023 last year and resource person at the National Intellectual Property Conference, NIPC. Shukurat is an accredited agent at the intellectual property offices in Nigeria and a pioneer of the intangible nuggets. You need to follow that up actually on Instagram. And education and channel platform, which is responsible for fostering, among other things, intellectual property organization advocacy, awareness and education. Trust me, if you go on Instagram and check her out, you would be blown away. A big welcome to the goddess herself. Mr. Musa, you're really, really welcome, ma'am. Really nice having you with us. Okay, wow. Another great one here. Quickly, I'll go through her profile. So you would listen and know how amazing she is. We have Onyekachi Eriobu Anyede. I'll quickly go through her profile. Onyekachi Eriobu Anyede, a lawyer and a former TV presenter, joined the Nigerian Civil Service in 2014 and was posted to the Commercial Law Department, Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. The office mandated to protect industrial properties in Nigeria. Onyekachi's dedication to work and intellectual property IP is evident in her various roles. She serves as the secretary to the Board of Survey, Dex, Dex Officer of the Federal Civil Service Strategy and Implementation Plan, that's from 2021 to 2025. And as a patent examiner, she is recognized as a Federal Civil Service innovator and future leader. She has extensive knowledge of intellectual property systems across various countries, having completed exchange programs from other IP offices, a master's program from Africa University sponsored by WIPO, a diploma in IP paralegal from Los Quijo, I hope I got that correct, Los Sico, hope I got that correctly, and membership in WIPO's International Network for IP Education. Driven by her passion for IP, she actively creates informative content and engages in the intellectual property discussions whenever the opportunity arises. Her legal background, civil service, and experience, and of course, her dedication to IP make a valuable asset. A big welcome to you, ma'am. It's always a pleasure having you with us here at Jiipcc. Okay, quickly, we have another amazing mentor with us today. It is, please, if I murder your name, help me to correct it later. If I don't pronounce it correctly, help me please to correct it. We have Amile, I hope I got that correctly, Amile Tala Fowler. Amile Tala Fowler is an intellectual property strategist and an experienced trade negotiator. She provides assistants and guardians to clients on intellectual property through her technical skills. She supports her clients from the beginning of their project and during the whole life cycle of their intellectual property rights. She's the Deputy Director of Cabinet TNF and an observator at the AMOAPI, that's Association of Legal IP Attorneys of Cameroon, and the co-editor of the Intellectual Property News Flash titled TNF rather, IP Spotlight. A big welcome to Tala with us this afternoon. Okay, we have another amazing mentor. That is Folarinwa Aluko. Folarinwa Aluko or Folarin Aluko is a legal practitioner and partner in the firm of Truman Brookwood Solicitors, where he provides advisory and consultancy services to companies with a wide range of creators, users, and startups. Folarin is a director of the Intellectual Property Institute Nigeria. He's chairman, board of trustees of the Intellectual Property Lawyers Association Nigeria. Folarin is a member, board of trustees of the Sports Lawyers Association Nigeria, as well as a member of the board of the Nigeria Digital Chamber of Commerce. Folarin is also a board member of the Songwriters Association of Nigeria with a background in ICT hardware and digital forensics. Folarin has led legal teams, to the champion. Sorry, I'll take that again. Folarin has led legal teams to champion consequential strategic impact public interest litigation in the IP space since 2012. Folarin is a consulting mediator and with commercial intermediates and an ADR firm based in Lagos and Abuja. He is a thought leader in Nigeria's innovation, technology, intellectual property, and of course, entertainment space. Okay, that's a really long read, and trust me, you can find out all these details on our mentors if you check on all our social media handles through LinkedIn to Instagram to Facebook. All these are there. So quickly, please, can you give a warm welcome to all our mentors with us for today's session? A big welcome to all our mentors for joining us on today's session. Okay, thank you very much. So before we go into today's discuss, I think we should do something very important. we're going to have our picture time. At this point, I will employ everyone to please turn on their cameras for a quick picture time where we take a picture, of course, for posterity's sake. Kindly know that your pictures will be posted on all our social media handles as mentees, mentors, and of course, moderators for this class and for this session. Please let's kindly turn on our cameras. Thank you so much. And if you don't mind, you're going to learn IP, so please put a smile on your face because that's an intangible nugget on its own. Okay. So once it's taken, I will identify, and of course, we'll start off with our mentors.
Please give me a moment. I'll be taking it very shortly. Thank you.
Please carry on. No problem, sir. Hey, I can see more cameras coming on. Please let's turn on our cameras.
Okay, we are done.
Okay, I think some people are still turning theirs on. If you could confirm, sir.
Okay.
I think we have new cameras turned on. Okay, I see Vamdele Nelly. Nice.
So I'm done now.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. And of course, let's get down to business. Okay, so this class is on IP and business. So we're going to hear from our mentors. We're going to have about 5 minutes to do an intro. Just give us a little intro, or let's say 10 minutes, a little intro into what we're going to be discussing today. After that, we're going to hear from our mentees for their presentation, and then we'll welcome our mentors to just fine tune and cement everything, and then we'll move into the questions and answer sessions for today. Do not forget here at Jiipcc is always about learning, and when it comes to IP, there's always so much to learn. So I'm going to start with a man whose name screams earth already. Please, I want to welcome our first mentor for today, Mr. Sand Bakalu, to open the floor with his opening statements on today's topic. Mr. Sand, over to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today.
All right, thank you very much. God's love, Kamolu Ni, right? You've done a fantastic job reading out. They didn't tell me that I'll be bringing my family history out from my great-great-grandfather. Please, let's shorten it. And when you put me side by side with people like Amusa and my brother and my other sisters, everybody here, then I have to be very careful. And I swear, you are setting me up being the first person. Anyway, have 10 minutes to talk. I'd love to share, but you say 10 minutes. I think I'll just speak to it, really. I'll speak to IP and business. That is the topic. And I think it's important that the mentees take this very serious. My background is really trade, because I believe that trade is a system that sustains humanity. Nothing we do that will amount to something if we don't consider the part of trade, part of exchange, part of resources exchanging and value being gotten. So even if you are doing a social enterprise is sustained because there's someone working somewhere paying the bill for you to do social enterprise. Government offers social services because there's a business operating and paying their tax to be able to ensure they're able to do that social intervention they do. So trade is the bottom line of everything. But for trade to thrive, IP then comes in. IP is an enabler of business. Not just enabler of business, enabler of sustainable business. And that is where Africa is lacking. Currently, Nigeria is recorded as the poverty capital of the world. The question will be, is it that we are so lazy that we can't work for ourselves, that we become poor? No, the question is this: we have not mainstream intellectual property. What is intellectual property? Intellectual property is the ability to reward someone's hard work for a period of time to benefit from it. I have about 12 slides, which of course, if I share these things, it's going to be like 1 hour or 2 hours discussion. But I just said it's 10 minutes, so let me speak to this. So intellectual property is an enabler of sustainable business. And you will see from that perspective, we realize that everything that will be, and everything that will come will thrive on the back of intellectual property, be it your service, be it your computer. We are all now speaking using Zoom to work. I know definitely all scattered from different parts of Nigeria, even across the world. But that thing that makes us come together is because there is someone's intellectual property is protected, which makes the business be able to try to give us service that we want. Where a business does not consider intellectual property as an enabler of that business, where a government does not consider intellectual property as an enabler of that business, of that economy, then the economy will not thrive. That is why we have poverty everywhere. The small businesses are not considering it because we are still seeing intellectual property as an abstract thing. And I think I have to commend you, and I have to commend the organizers of this Jiipcc Academy. They've been around for some time, and I think they've inspired a generation that will be able to turn around things in the future. So any business that wants to maintain its status in business and remain in business has to, first of all, think about intellectual property. Even as we are now, if you have an idea, think how do you register it first. But registering it is not just there, it's not just the end. Intellectual property is not the end to business profitability or sustainability. It's an enabler, as I've said. So it's a foundation for you to set. So other things have to come in marketing, the strategy, everything has to go. But first of all, get it right. You must have a business that understands intellectual property as a tool. As you are registering your business name or business activities with CSE, start also registering it, maybe the trademark, the logo, and stuff. Some people will say, allow you to also start yielding before you start registering, because in Nigeria, registration of IP is expensive. Other countries is cheap and it's easy. Although effort has been made to be able to automate the stuff, automate the system, but it's still being delayed. It's still very expensive. It's still not a mainstream thing where people know how to go about it. So under intellectual property as an enabler of business, Nigeria has its own domestic and national system, since we are operating in Africa and with AFCFTA. So in the global system, by the multilateral system, WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization, and WTO are the multilateral system that defines intellectual property. So whatever thing happened at the multilateral system trickles down to the national. So for Africa now, we have the AFCFTA protocol on intellectual property, which is a continental thing that we are working on, a continental system we are working on as Africans to be able to leverage on it. Then at the regional level, we have the ARIPO and the OAPI. These are divided into two. We have two intergovernmental agencies, they call them, and they took that bearing from the place of our colonial past. The Francophone are the OAPI, the Anglophone are the ARIPOs. Then at the national level, they have a national system. But it's interesting to know that Nigeria is not part of ARIPO or API, which is a concern. But again, someone told me today that Nigeria and major players like Nigeria and South Africa are not part of ARIPO or API, but their economic controls is bigger than the OAPI or ARIPOs combined. If the two economy, I think Egypt is not even part of them. But as we think about intellectual property as a business and you want to expand into other countries outside, I mentioned this for you to know that there's a system in place to be able to engage with African countries. But it might be a little bit expensive because we are not part of all this regional economic bloc. But even within ECOWAS, there is also an ECOWAS because we are West Africa, so there's an intellectual property system within ECOWAS. Having said this, let's even start locally first. I want to commend us and I want to encourage us that as we listen to you, give us your insight, We advise, but we will also encourage you to also practicalize what you learn. Because by so doing, you'll be able to internalize it. But one thing you should be sure of is this. And what you should know is that if you want to have a sustainable business, no matter how small it is, IP is that thing that will help you have a sustainable business. If you don't, people will infringe on your intellectual property, benefit from it, and you will not do anything. And we see a lot of cases. And so there is something that is even emerged that even came up today. Having an IP system or having a trademark that is close to a non-brand. For example, we have a platform called the African IP Center, which has like 400 people from across who in IP in Africa most times are part of that on that platform. And there was a discussion today about someone racing. I think it's a cleaning business. Registered it, watch a cleaner, EasyJet, and EasyJet is a known brand in Europe for airline. And the business has been thriving. But when EasyJet discovered, they have to sue. And I think they won. So while you register your IP assets, don't go close to starting known brand, except you just want to cruise and change the name later. But it's not wise, because if your business becomes something that start yielding good profit for you, you might have challenge with it. At that point, you want to have a breakthrough. The big boys will come. Another person that has Hugo Boss also had an issue. So I'm saying this as we make presentation, we make suggestion, and I'm happy that this is your first session. So there will be a lot to learn from. While we go in, IP has different areas. We start going into from copyright to patent to geographical indication to traditional knowledge. We start zeroing into all these areas. And I believe that you'll be inspired to either take a career on the part of an IP consultant, like my sister is doing, and my brother as well. And I think most of the mentors today, they are IP consultants in their own right, except just one person that works with the government, I think. So you can either take that path, or you can as well, even while you take that path, you should understand that whatsoever you do in business, for you to be sustainable in long term, you need an IP system, and you have to register it. That is it for me for now. Why I listen into other people make that presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Sound, thank you so much for a very nice start. Thank you. And I think I'm also following up on the Rwanda program coming up. So should we say see you in Rwanda, hopefully?
Well, yeah, exactly. From November to 28th to 30th. Hopefully we have, the idea behind that is to see how we can harmonize the system. I've mentioned we have the multilateral system, we have the regional system, we have the intergovernmental agency, two of them, and it becomes fragmented when you can not file in from one country and applies to everyone. We have the multilateral system, the Madrid Treaty, and Geneva Act for if it's geographical indication, but we also need an African context in this whole stuff. And we know China is coming. I didn't even mention that China also have a strategy of penetrating the African market by building up the China strategy. So the All African IP Summit is a system where we want to see how the private sector will drive and bring everybody together. As I said, IP should not be an abstract thing. Businesses must understand it is a critical element of their sustainability and growth. So we must bring it down for the Accra woman to know that she has trade secrets and she has to protect, for her to transfer the asset of making Accra uniquely to her generation, and which of course she can then sell it to maybe like Origin, is it Origin Water? What's that? People that take, I know Good Love, God's Love, you like that Origin, you know that Origin, you like taking it. You know, that was someone's idea. The person has to sell it to Coca-Cola or one of these Nigerian brewery, because the person protected the integrity of that product from day one using intellectual property. So it become a valuable asset for the person to sell it to a multinational company that gave him gave her so much money that she will never be poor anymore. Hopefully, if she doesn't go bankrupt because of that. So there are cases and instances of where a small business had intellectual property from day one and was able to sell it or transfer it to a generation. There are businesses, you imagine why some businesses have 100 years behind them, especially in developed countries. It's not because of that business, because there is an intellectual property that enabled that business to keep that secret that long. And there are 1,001 of them, but we don't have that story when it comes to Nigeria and Africa, in African context, because we have a fragmented, we don't even see IP as anything. People still argue that IP is not the making of Africa. But we know it is not. But people have benefited. China is a case study that's not be part of the IP system from day one, but they benefited from IP. They started weak, but now IP is part of their national economic development strategy. We don't have that in Nigeria. We don't have a national policy on IP. Just starting from there. But let's start from who we are as a person. Let the change start from us when it comes to empowering ourselves, creating wealth, and retaining wealth. But we can only do that through IP. I tell you for free, it was a tested case. So let's use what has worked. Follow who know road. Who know road? Now who knows
Okay.
so you can't change that.
Thank you so much. I love that. Follow who know road. It's really, really important. Follow who know road. And of course, we need to protect these and of course retain the wealth we're going to make. Thank you so much, Mr. Sand. Thank you so much. So in should I say following suit with following who know road, I want to welcome another mentor who knows this road. He's one man who has been working with doing since 2012 at the registry. Please welcome, I call him again the Mazi of IP. I want to welcome mentor to give us a 10 minutes opening remarks. That's Mr. Max Ikongwe. Mr. Max, the Mazi himself, welcome to today's session. It's such an honor to have you with us again. I wonder why we only relate when we come to sessions.
Thank you, God.
So Max, over to you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, God's love. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please. Yes, I can hear you. Yes, please.
Okay, apologies. My network is a little bit dodgy. Thank you, always, God's love. I mean, your hype is always, it's always good. Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be on Jiipcc as always. I commend all the mentees who have joined today. I mean, Jiipcc is a good program. It's good to connect early on with IP in your career. So I have 10 minutes, but I'll try to do faster because I really am interested in listening to the presentation by the mentees today. So I'll just make quick 5 points about IP, and let me also commend Oga Sand, for opening us this evening. I mean, Sand is doing a wonderful job. So Sand is someone you need to follow, like he's talked about the summit in Rwanda, and then of course the African IP Center group also that he runs. He's doing a really fantastic job in the space of IP advocacy and, like he mentioned, linking IP to economic activity, because IP is not abstract. IP is actually an enabler of economic activity. So without people like Sand, IP would not benefit Africa, because what has happened is that we have not linked IP to economic growth and development, and that is why we are still struggling where we are. So I'll just make 5 brief points. Of course, when we get to the interactive section and Q&A, we will dig into some of them a little bit more. But let me start with one, connected to what I just mentioned about Mr. Sand and how IP is important for the economy. Now, this is just something to just give you a few things to think about. So France, for instance, makes more money from selling champagne than Nigeria makes from selling crude oil. So just allow that sink in and ask yourself, how is France able to make so much money and protect that simple, what we think is a brand, champagne? It is one of the areas we mentioned when introducing Mr. Sand, geographic indications. Nobody else can bottle a sparkly, bubbly wine drink and call it champagne. In fact, even if you go as far as Apple launched a version of iPhone and called it champagne color or something, because it was actually champagne color. And the Champagne Association, the association of farmers or traders in the champagne, were able to use their geographic indication as a basis to stop Apple from using that word. So it tells you that France and their people have a monopoly on that word champagne because it's a geographic indication tied to that particular unique wine produced, in their own territory. And because of that monopoly that intellectual property through geographic indication has given to them, they are able to make more money from selling champagne than we make from crude oil. So like I said, just let that sink in and understand that IP actually has very significant economic value. The next major point I want to make also is something that Mr. Sand also mentioned, that IP is something you have to plan from the early stage of any business. IP is not an afterthought. IP is not something that happens when the business, has become quote unquote profitable. IP should be amongst the strategy that the business puts in place from the get-go to bring it to the point of profitability. So like you mentioned, the moment you are registering, and I'm talking to you as professionals now, the moment a client is engaging you to register a company for them, at the Corporate Affairs Commission and, get their business set up and running, you should, as a professional, be drawing their attention that it is equally important that they immediately begin to protect their IP. So like Mr. San mentioned, the first obvious is trademark. So as soon as they are getting that name, if they are intend to use the company name also as the name to market their products, then they should immediately think about protecting that name with trademarks. Then the next point, which will be the third, is also that what has happened over time and why businesses tend to pay low attention to IP is that they see IP as a liability or as what we call a cost center. So their impression is that IP is just one of those other expensive government requirements I need to get to run my business. They do not see IP as an asset. They just assume, oh, I've spent maybe 100,000 registering my company in the Corporate Affairs Commission. I have to spend another 200,000 registering a trademark. And they just see it from a viewpoint of this is a cost element. But they do not understand that IP, unlike your business registration, for instance, the IP itself becomes a valuable asset that you can use, that can grow your profitability and grow your business. And the reason why we say that is that IP itself, even though it's intangible, is not something you can touch. So, I mean, if you are, for instance, if I was running a business that sells bottled water, for instance, now the assumption is that my asset really is my stock. That is the bottles of water I have to sell. But the truth is that what is even more valuable than the bottles of water that you sell, if you have built goodwill over time, is actually your trademark. Because if I walk into a shop and I see 5 different brands of bottled water, there's a reason I choose one. And that reason is because when I look at the 5 of them, there's something I'm seeing on each of them that would make me decide which of them I want to pick. So for instance, this bottle I have, Seaway. Yeah, I hope you can see it now. So Seaway is written there. So if I've used Seaway before, somebody has recommended Seaway to me, this simple logo or initial here is what would make me pick one bottle instead of the other. So it tells me that that logo, which is essentially can be protected by way of a trademark, is in itself a valuable item. It is, in a sense, even more valuable than the water itself because it is what would make me pick this particular brand and not the other. So it means if this company were to manufacture their water and put nothing on it and just sold the bottle plain without that logo on it, I might not choose it. So that tells you that at the end of the day, the business can put down that trademark on their balance sheet and say, among the assets we have a factory, we have 300 tons of material to produce bottle, we have the water, we have a generator, we have our delivery van. They can also add to that list among their assets, their trademark as well. And there will be a valuation that tells what is the value of that trademark. So it can be added to their balance sheet amongst the assets that they own. So that is just to say, educate businesses to understand that the money they spend registering their IP or protecting their IP is not wasted. That money actually is bringing returns by way of helping add valuable assets to their business. And then the fourth point, would also be that IP is also important. And Mr. Sand also touched on it when he talked about sustainability. If you want to have a sustainable business, businesses are sustainable because they continue to do research and development so that they keep creating products that meet the needs of customers. So the only way a business would know what customers would need or what customers need on an ongoing basis is to continue doing research and development, fine-tuning your product, making it better, making it look more attractive, making it have new features that would attract customers to you and away from your competitors. So if you are going to spend money doing research and development, and you, for instance, may need to take a loan from a bank to fund your research and development effort, then you need to protect the result of that research and development. So that is where trade secrets, patents will come into play, because when you do research and development and you invent a new way to present a product that is more valuable than what your competitors have, you can protect that using patent. So patent essentially is a monopoly that the government gives you for 20 years to prevent anybody else from using that invention. So it means that when you finish that invention, the government understands that you have put a lot of money and time into research and development to come up with that invention. So you have 20 years when nobody else shares the reward of that invention with you, and you can recoup your money. So without the protection of intellectual property, investing in research and development would be a wasteful venture for businesses, and that way we will not have sustainable businesses, because there's no way to ensure that you keep innovating to meet the needs of the market. And the last point, which flows from what I just mentioned, is that there are certain industries that, because the only way they can really maximize income or revenue is through the enhanced protection that IP brings, those businesses, those industries cannot function. One of them is the pharmaceutical industry. In the pharmaceutical industry, the only way a pharmaceutical company can make money and stay ahead of the curve is to continue to innovate new drugs. So you could, for instance, the example of malaria, for instance, the first old set of malaria drugs was what we call quinine. But quinine had a lot of problems. Number one, it causes insomnia. It also itches a lot. So we have chloroquine, which was slightly better than quinine. We have new versions. So it means that a pharmaceutical company, you must continue to innovate, to fine-tune your products and your drug. And the only way you can do that sustainably is to protect the result through patent protection, for instance, and so many other industries. So sports, for instance, sports has a basic revenue model. People buy tickets to go and watch the sport event. But because of IP protection, copyright, for instance, broadcast right, only 60,000 people, for instance, can go into Old Trafford to watch a Manchester United football match. But close to maybe hundreds of millions, even billions of people can watch that match because of broadcast right. The only way that the club and the sports federation makes money from that broadcast right is because copyright law protects their right that anybody who wants to broadcast that football match must pay a royalty to them. So that's how IP enhances revenue model in sports business. I can mention in many other industries that without IP, they would not be able to survive. But I'll stop at this point, and when we get to the question and answer, we'll discuss some more. So thank you, God's love. Back to you.
Okay, sir, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that opening. It's always a pleasure to listen to you. You always do a phenomenal job. Mentees, I hope you're taking our notes, because here at Jiipcc, you must write. Like I said before, you learn, unlearn, and of course, relearn. There's a lot of amazing stuff to be learned here with Jiipcc. So please take down notes, because you're going to examine on these things. And in the chat box, please do well to send your big thanks to our mentors as they round off their opening statements. And please get your live questions ready, because we will get into that in no time. Okay, quickly, we'll go on to the woman who is all about the intangible nugget. I call her the goddess of IP, and she does a phenomenal job at that. Please welcome an amazing lady when it comes to IP, Mrs. Amosa Shukurat Modipola. Welcome, Ma. It's another amazing pleasure to have you with us for this session.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. God's love. Oh, your mouth is too sweet. Okay, so pardon me, I won't be sharing my screen. I think Mr. Max and Mr. Sand have done justice to the topic. So I'll be looking at the aspect of IP management, right? So Mr. Sand and Mr. Max have told us about how you are supposed to integrate IP into your business, because IP is not a standalone right. So imagine if I have a trademark for a name and I'm not using it for anything. I'm not using it to sell business. I'm not promoting it. It doesn't make any sense, right? So your IP has to be linked to something. And that is where your business model comes in and why you need an IP strategy. So when you are developing, and we've realized that most times when people are going about, oh, I want to start my business, this is my business model, there's one thing they always take for granted, which is the IP strategy and how they're going to protect the IP in their business. They do that last. And at that last point is always very risky, because one way or the other, someone might go ahead to register your IP without your permission. And because you didn't register it first, the person that registered it first is given that upper hand, because the law says first to come, first to serve. So you have to be able to understand what IP elements are there in your business. So let's say, for example, maybe you are a fashion designer and you want to open a fashion business. Now, it boils down to the name you want to use for branding. Do you want your business name to also be the name you will use for branding? Because you don't want to pick a name that is very generic or very descriptive if you want to use that same name to market your brand. So everything boils down to, how does IP connect to my business? How can I maximize this IP? How can I pick a name such that at the end of the day, I will still be able to trademark this name? So as a business owner, the first question you want to ask yourself is, what do I want to do? Do I want my business name to be the same as my brand name? If not, then you can go ahead to register your business name and probably find a different brand name that you're going to use to market your product. But in an instance whereby you want your business name to be your brand name, let's say your business name is Debola Lagos, and you also want your brand name to be Debola Lagos, what you have to do, number one, is first you have to do like a business name search at CAC. And while you are doing business name search, you have to also do a trademark search. That's because you've decided that you want your business name to also be your brand name. Now, while doing that, you also want to do a domain name search to make sure that by the time you register your business and you have your trademark, somebody else has not gotten that name for their own website. You also want to check your social media. So your Facebook will not be Debola, and your Instagram will be Lagos_Debola, and your Twitter will be Debola_Lagos_. So everything will not look so haphazard. You want everything to be synchronized, right? So while you are doing everything, you want to make sure you are doing them at the same time, so you are able to get that thing at the same time. So I'll give an example now. While we were trying to bring up the Africa IP Summit, what we did was, number one, we tried to check if Africa IP Summit is available across all platforms, right? Number one, we had to get the trademark. Then before even getting it, we have to check, do we have this name available? Because there's no point registering the trademark, and at the end of the day, we have to use a different name for Instagram, for Facebook. People will not be able to identify us, right? So we needed something that is complementary, that is easy to find. So once you just type Africa IP Summit on all social media platforms, it brings out our platform. So that's the kind of synchronization you want for your business. You don't want your business, your brand name to be A, your business name is B, your LinkedIn is C, your Facebook is D, your Instagram is E, your Twitter is F. Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? So all of these things, you want to put them into consideration. And to do this now, you have to put into consideration the criteria for trademark registration. So before you select a name for your business name, which you also want to be your brand name, you have to put in consideration the criteria. Number one, the name must not be descriptive. It should not give out what you are doing. Number two, it should not be deceptive. Number three, it should not be generic. And overall, it should be distinctive. Distinctive in the sense that when people see it, they're like, oh, this is good. Say, for example, you are selling Apple and your brand name is Apple. Doesn't make any sense. But look at a brand name, Apple, for a tech product. I mean, that's very distinctive. So you want a very distinctive name like that. Although in some cases, there are some cases whereby a brand might be descriptive, then through use, it might gain distinctiveness through use. But in most cases, it's very hard to prove that you've gotten descriptiveness to use. So there's a particular case ongoing. There's this brand, Pocket Socks. They are now, okay, this is a very good example. So the name of the company is Pocket Socks Inc. But they have a brand. The brand is a pocket that has socks, like normal socks that we put on. But by the side, there's a pocket in the socks. So they named the product Pocket Socks. And their business name is also Pocket Socks, right? Then they have a particular unique design for their, a patent design for the socks, whereby the diagram of the socks and the positioning of the pockets in the socks. Now, Louis Vuitton came up with something similar, also a socks that has pockets, and they are marketing it with the same name, Pocket Socks, because there's nothing distinctive about the name Pocket Socks. Pocket Socks is just a socks that has pockets. But there's this particular, the main brand now, Pocket Socks, has a trademark for Pocket Socks. And now they are suing Louis Vuitton and their designer for using the name Pocket Socks. And when at the end of the day, Louis Vuitton is going to defend themselves by saying that the Pocket Socks is something general that anybody can use, a socks that has pockets, and you are saying you have a trademark for that. So look at that kind of scenario. You don't want to have a name that is very descriptive. So if Louis Vuitton wants to defend themselves now, what I'm going to say is that Pocket Socks is a generic name. And because of that, the Pocket Socks brand now shouldn't have gotten a trademark for that name. So it boils down to how are you putting out your brand? Because you don't want to rebrand at the end of the day. You don't want a situation whereby they'll ask you to come and rebrand because your name is generic or is not distinctive. So you have to put all of this into perspective. Now, once you've done this and you've set up your business, how do you identify your IP assets? Everybody is like, oh, what people just know basically is, oh, I have to register my IP. I have to register my IP. They don't even know what IP is in the first place. They can't even identify the IP in their business in the second place. And because of this, if what your business actually need is copyright, but someone tells you it's trademark, you just go ahead and do trademark. And this is the reason why people will come and tell you, I want to copyright my trademark or I want to patent my trademark, because they can't even identify the IP rights in their business. So the first thing you want to do is you want to identify the IP in your business. And you can't do this alone. You have to look at it vis-a-vis your business model. Your business model will help you tell, okay, fine, this is my business model. I'm doing a B2C business to customers. And one major thing for me is my brand name, because that brand name is what people will see before they even know the person that is selling. So is that brand that'll put my business out there. So that's number one identification, is trademark to protect the brand name. Now, if you have maybe a graphic designer or you have a photographer that takes images of your products, you want to look at ownership as well. Who owns the IP? How do you protect all of these things to make it becomes your own? So these are the things you have to put into consideration when you're doing. And when you've identified your IP, then what do you need to do? As a small business owner, in the first place, you might not be able to register because you don't have that money to register. However, there's something called poor man's patent or poor man's trademark or poor man's copyright. So let's assume you design something and you don't have money to protect it. Then you now email it to yourself, or you do like a post mail, so that you have that timestamp to prove if somebody else is infringing. But when your business grows, your IP strategy have to grow with your business. So what you have to do is now start putting into consideration, okay, fine, how can I move from a defensive business strategy or a defensive IP strategy into an offensive IP strategy, whereby you are able to start filing your copyrights, your trademark, and this and that. And at the end of the day, you are also able to monetize this. So once you are able to identify, then you protect it by registration. Now, not all IP rights requires registration. You need to know that. So under trademark, when your trademark is registered and somebody use your mark without your permission, it's called infringement. But when your trademark is not registered and someone use your mark without your permission, it's not called infringement, it's called passing off. So you can actually claim your rights either with passing off or with infringement. But with passing off, there has to be some criteria you have to meet up to prove that truly this person actually is maybe bootlegging on your mark. Then when it comes to copyright is like an automatic right that is granted to you the moment you have an idea that has been expressed in a tangible form and the idea is original. So for example, a work like copyright, you don't really need money to protect because the registration because the protection to copyright is automatic. But it will get to a point, sometimes you do a work and you're like, it's sure for me, say this work, it makes sense, die. Those kind of work is better for you to register it because you don't know the value that work is going to generate in the coming years. So there are some work that even your instinct will tell you, this work is too good to be true. So some work like this, you just have to handpick them and they are the ones that you can register. It's not advisable for, okay, maybe any picture you snap, you go and register it just like that. You're not Dangote, even Dangote not do something like that. So you have to be very strategic, and that's where the strategic planning and strategic IP comes in. Another thing is regards to the classes you want to be registered in. I received the calls and some people will be like, I want to register my trademark in all the trademark classes. And I'm like, who are you? Do you understand? Because yes, you don't want people to infringe on your mark or you don't want people to use your mark without permission. But why do you have to register in all trademark classes when what you are doing is just in maybe just 2 classes? Why do you want to waste your money to do that? Because by the time you register your mark and you are not using it, your mark is likely to be revoked for non-use. So instead of being an asset, then it becomes a liability to you. So all of these things, you have to put them into perspective. It's not only registration. Sometimes you don't need registration. Because if your trademark is a name that you are still contemplating that, oh, I think I still want to change this name, then it's not advisable to register that trademark at that point. So sometimes you can still run your business and evaluate your IP even without registration. But as I said, when your business grows, your IP strategy has to develop with your business. So that way you are able to properly protect your business of using registration at some point. And those that don't require registration, like trade secrets, you use your NDA, non-disclosure agreement, to protect it. So all in all, we are going to follow the IP life cycle, like God's luck already know. So the first thing you have to do is you want to identify your IP. When you're able to identify it, you do what? You protect it. When you protect it, you police it. Now, this is one thing we don't do, really. We don't police and we don't enforce. What we do is identify and protect, and we put our full stop there. You should not stop at identifying and protecting, because what is the essence of protecting when you're not going to police and you're not going to enforce, you're not going to monetize? So what we just do is, oh, I don't want people to use it. I'll go and register it, and we drop it, and we put our pen there and say, full stop, I'm done with my IP. In fact, you just started, because who doesn't like something that is good? Everybody likes something that is good. In fact, today we're just discussing about small brand trying to use big brand's name as their name. Why? Because we don't know if your business will blow. If your business should blow, those big brands are coming for you. They don't care maybe they are big or you are small. As long as you are using their name and they feel like it seems similar, they are coming for you. And it's hard for you to actually scale because they have the money to process all of these things. So why don't you just be original? Come up with your own name that has nothing to do with this big brand. In fact, your name has nothing to do with them. They will still come after you. Not to talk of when your name looks similar. So you have to be very strategic. You don't want to put yourself in a compromising situation. Get original names. Take a look at Buju. When Buju started, he was using Buju as his artistic name or his music name. Then later, he was supposed to perform outside the country. And he realized there's a guy, Buju Banton, outside the country. But because he knows that he wants to take his career out of Nigeria. He wants to go global. He had to change his name from Buju to BNXN, because if he is in that particular country where Buju Bouncing is, he won't be able to use the name Buju because there's somebody with that trademark registered Buju. So he had to change his name, BNXN. I know people don't know the reason. BNXN is like, when you look at it, is Benson. BNXN means Benson. So it's just like a short form of Buju Benson, which is his name. So he started using BNXN, which is now, I hope so, probably trademark in the international country as well. So you don't want to say, oh, I'm just Nigeria. You don't think local. You have to look at prospects for your marks. Because if you say, I can see there's one area company in abroad, let me also use area as my trademark in Nigeria. What if your business blooms and grows and you are expanding abroad? You won't be able to use that name area in that country because it's also registered in that country. And IP rights is limited, is territorial in nature. If you register anything in Nigeria, it's only protected in Nigeria. So you also want to think broadly. You don't want to limit yourself to just Nigeria. Think international as well, even though you are asked to act local, but think international in case your brand is going to, move from that point. So once you've done identifying your IP assets, you want to protect it. Protection could be by registration, it could be by non-registration. The next thing you want to do is you want to police it. Who is using my brand? Everybody loves success. So the fact that your brand is doing well, there's some people that are looking at it and they will use it to sell their product. I was telling my mentees the other day from the leather industry. I was saying, if you have a particular name for your shoes, and that shoe is doing numbers, is a shoe that your customer like most, trademark that name, because your competitors will see that this particular name of this shoe is doing numbers, and they will name their own shoe that same name as well. But because you don't have a trademark right to it, you can't fight for it. So that's where policing comes in. When you don't police, you don't know who and who is using your IP without your permission. Now, the next thing now you want to do is you want to enforce. And this is a big problem. I understand that the way things are in Nigeria is not really encouraging, right? But something as simple as calling out people on social media is a great way to enforce your rights. You don't have to get to court before you get your rights enforced. In fact, once you say it like this, they will blow it up. In fact, they will blow it out of proportion for you. You won't even expect it. Look at the Ngwogogo case. I came across another one the other day. They said Baba Frayo and what's his name? The guy used Baba Frayo song. But the thing now is, with social media now, using people's work is more of PR these days. You don't know which one is right. You don't know if that one I've called him to, create this content now, see that I'm infringing your right so that we can get, you don't know which is right. So most of these times, you don't want to really address some of these issues. So you have to enforce your rights. Try to enforce. If you don't enforce, you are telling people that just leave it or you can come and use it. But the moment you call one person out, they'll know that, this one, I no go area. If I use it like this, it will call me out. Let them know you for that. It's better they know you for that than making money off your IP without permission and you can't even enforce your rights. So after enforcement, the last thing you want to do is you want to monetize your IP, because my dear, everything is about making money. The reason why we are doing this thing in the first place is to make money. So why will you invest so much in protecting your IP and registering it, and at the end of the day, you put it in the shelf? You are not making money from it. I think Ashake's concert, I saw somebody posted it. He has done merchandise with, is it Lungun something? I want to believe that has been trademarked as well. So even everybody are even trying to make money. So merchandise is also a good way to make money. If you're having an event, do shirts, do t-shirt, put your logo. There's a lawyer I really love, Cardinal Counsel. I love how Bernice puts her product out there. Anywhere she's going to, she uses a cup that has a brand name. Her bag, her tote bag, ask Cardinal Counsel. Anything she's doing, ask her. Everywhere she's going to, you will see Cardinal Counsel on it. It's a good way to put yourself out there. It's a good way. If you so what is this? It's my brand now. So people will ask, oh, I love this. Oh, it's actually for my brand. And one way or the other, you get to interact with people, and one way or the other, you buy them as your client. So all of these things, we have to put it into perspective. Don't say, oh, IP is just registration. No, IP is not just registration. It doesn't stop at registration. You have to look down to protection, enforcement, and monetization. So I think I'll stop there for now to allow others speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. It's always a pleasure. I always say it every time, it's always a pleasure. And I want to say a big thank you to the Africa IP Center, because some people like us are reading. We come and read and we get so much knowledge, and it's really amazing. So she said some really important things, some things I took out of here. One is, when your business grows, your IP strategy has to grow and develop with the business. Please, Mr. Shukurat, know that you're going to see this a lot on my posts. Yes. I'm going to, I hope I can use the copyright. Because this was perfectly said. When your business grows, your IP strategy has to grow and develop with the business. Well said. And mentees, do not forget, don't think local. You need to think far. And so for those who are lawyers here, or those who want to become IP consultants, think for your clients global, because clients are looking for those people who think global for them. If another person thinks global for your clients, you've lost that client, because that client feels like they know more than that person knows more than you do. So thank you so much, Mr. Samosa, for another great opening to this amazing session. Okay, so quickly we'll need to go into one of our other amazing mentors. I went through his profile and really remarkable. Please welcome Mr. Folarin Aluko as he gives us his opening statements for today's session. Welcome, Mr. Folarin, sir. An amazing time having you with us.
Thank you very much, God's love. Just a quick sound check. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, although not loud enough.
Okay, I'll work on increasing the volume of my microphone. Okay, dokes. So it's been a very interesting conversation. I've followed very closely and listened with very keen interest to all the interventions thus far. And I must say, very interesting stuff. It's my pleasure to be here. So good evening, everyone. Actually, it's an honor to join the call. A lot has been said about different aspects or perspectives of intellectual property and how it affects business, or how it impacts on trade. I would say that in a globalized economy, trade actually today involves more than just an exchange of goods and services. Trade, which is the backbone of economic development, trade involves much more than just, person A going to the market to sell to person B. There's a lot that is involved in that simple interaction. So you have technology, you have innovation, you have culture, you have the creation of an experience. Sales today of products are sold against the backdrop of an experience. An experience is sold to consumers and customers. And so IP plays a very intrinsic role in the global commercial landscape. Speaking about business, I think one thing that has echoed throughout all the interventions by previous mentors is the fact that we live in a global world now. And so as a vendor, or those of us here are aspiring IP specialists, but when thinking about our clients, it doesn't make any sense for anyone who wants to do business to only think locally or to restrict themselves to a local market. So in terms of, let's take a simple example, talking about the role that IP plays in modern trade. Let's look at, imagine a Nigerian fashion designer who has created a unique line of clothing that combines traditional fabrics with contemporary designs. Now, simple idea. Somebody has created a line of clothing that uses traditional fabrics, but then the person makes contemporary designs. Very simple idea, but that person is operating in a market that contains several other vendors who offer, who are also selling their own fabrics. And so the question is, how does that vendor distinguish his or her goods, or that fashion designer, how does that fashion designer distinguish her goods, her clothes, her unique designs from the goods of other vendors? IP is the middle point there, and I think one of the reasons why we have a very low one of the reasons why we have a very low appreciation for IP, I must say, in this part of the world, I think centers around the fact that when the concept of IP was introduced, since it has been introduced, it has been accepted only by the academia in Nigeria and the legal profession. But in reality, if you look at the concept of IP and if you go back under common law to the Statute of Anne, and you can even go further, under Greco-Roman law, or even some of our own African systems, some of our traditional systems, you find there's a recognition of property that belongs to the community. And the idea of communal property itself is a traditionally African concept, but I won't digress, in that direction. But you see that the backbone of intellectual property really is trade. If you look at some of the ideological foundations for IP protection, whether it's a natural rights theory or the economic rights theory or the economic markets theory, the framework for intellectual property is trade. And what that means is that it is businesses that actually drive intellectual property. So if you go to the Statute of Anne, for example, some people again may say that the telling of that story has its own villains and heroes. But if you look at the Statute of Anne, the law was put in place to protect those who had the rights of people who had obtained a printing license from the crown. So at the end of the day, at its core, IP has always been about protecting businesses. And of course, it becomes difficult to translate when the harbingers of this very important system are the academics. Apologies to all the academics on the call, and lawyers, and apologies to all the legal practitioners on the call, including yours truly. But somehow, these two classes of people in Nigeria have not been able to successfully translate or communicate the importance of intellectual property to businesses. And I think these two factors largely have militated against the adoption of the acceptance of the importance of IP. And that's why you find in many cases, you find that there are many businesses operate without paying conscious attention to what their real assets are. I like to have these conversations against the backdrop of facts, data, and statistics, because we really cannot talk about intellectual property and business without placing it on something, and that something should be some kind of statistical backdrop. Money Point and the Ministry of Trade and Industry did some research and came up with, it's called the Informal Economy Report for 2024. And in that report, they actually, the report states that, among other things, a very significant part of Nigerian, I think the vast majority of Nigerian businesses actually operate within what they call the informal economy. So they operate outside the scope of the formal economy. They handle, their transactions are done on a cash-by-cash basis. They do not participate in some of the structures that the formal economy provides, such as business registration, trademark registration, payment of taxes, and things like that. What the story, among other things, and they did a very fantastic job. They looked at the classification of proprietors from a gender point of view? So how many proprietors within this, how many actors within this informal economy are male? How many of them are female? Why do people why do most entrepreneurs in Nigeria start businesses? And I should also say that it's interesting to note that I think the most common response was that the most common response to the question, why did you start your business, was that, I couldn't get a job. I mean, that tells its own story. But the point I'm trying to make here is that because of the way our businesses are organized, it is very difficult. I mean, you can't start talking to somebody about intellectual property, when the person has not even amassed their physical property or tangible property, and I think, as Max had said earlier, that it is this ignorance that kind of fuels what you may consider as the apathy towards intellectual property and towards protecting intellectual property. I was on a Zoom call some years ago. Well, I can say that now. I think we started doing Zooms in 2020. So I was on a Zoom call some time ago, and somebody asked a question. It was a call, I don't recall, but it was a call on some topic involving trademark protection. And someone asked a question about why are trademarks important to businesses, and the resource person who was speaking, who is a lawyer from another jurisdiction from the Americas, the person was stunned by the question and was wondering why would an IP practitioner ask, about the importance of registering your trademark. And this is because, for those who know, there's a very direct connection between your brand's reputation and the brand's reputation, the money you invest in building that reputation, and of course, your sales whether it's for a service or for goods. So there's a very direct connection. But then, to many people who operate again, in the unstructured or informal economy, we don't see that direct connection. In fact, I would even say that to many, even among, unfortunately, legal practitioners, you'll still find quite a lot of us practicing without doing any form of registration. So you've not registered your trade name or done any form of registration, either with CAC or with trademark registry, and I find that to be demonstrative of this idea, this lack of awareness, if you may. So I think to bring this all together, there is a huge, what this means for us is that there's a huge gap in terms of awareness. And I like how, of course, there are a lot of people on this call who are doing fantastic work. Jiipcc is also doing fantastic work on awareness. And there's such a huge gap that I don't think it will be possible to close that gap within the next 10 years. But what it then means is that there's an opportunity for practitioners like you, if you should choose to make this your line of work. There are opportunities for potential clients and potential engagement in the future. And very quickly, I would also say that I think one other aspect I would like to highlight that maybe may not have been talked about here is that wherever you have business, there will always be disputes. So business centers around the principle of uberrima fides, utmost good faith, but then there must be consensus ad idem. So parties must agree. Wherever you have agreements, there will always be disagreements. Amusa mentioned she didn't mention talked about Gogwongo. There was the the shantytown thing. Wherever you have agreements, there will always be disagreements, and those disagreements wherever you have agreements or disagreements within the creative space or disagreements that involve intellectual property, you know, the way the disagreement is handled will definitely have a huge impact on that business. I'll give a quick example. Let's assume that there was a dispute as to the ownership of the song. And there was a lawsuit. Perhaps maybe the song will be taken off streaming platforms, you know, someone will file for an injunction, you know, and all of that. The public will be deprived of the use or the enjoyment of that work. You know, I'm talking about I mentioned reference Shantytown. IP Lawyers Association held a conversation on the Shantytown dispute. But imagine that there was a dispute around the ownership of that IP, and that dispute has delayed, whether I like it or not, it has actually delayed the release of the second season of that series. You know, so the truth of it, but the question now is, how are the disputes resolved? And I think this is where I would like to end, you know, to wrap this up by saying that intellectual property disputes, unlike disputes in many other areas, are often best resolved by alternative dispute resolution. So mediation, preferably mediation or arbitration, you know, conciliation or some other type of alternative dispute resolution. And the reason is because once your IP is stuck, of course, disputes tend to freeze IP. Using the Shantytown arrangement, or using the Shantytown dispute, for example, there's an application to register a trademark. A petition was written against that application. Of course, that petition was thrown out. But the idea is that during the pendency or during the lifetime of that petition, if the trademark has not been granted, if certificate has not been issued, it may slow down the issuance of that certificate. You know, or if it comes in the form of an opposition, it would literally stall or stop that registration. You know, so I would say that it's very important. The question of how we resolve disputes, very, very, very important. IP Institute has an interesting IP mediation program, which I think tries to address this. But it's also important that as lawyers or as IP people, IP enthusiasts, IP consultants, we should also think proactively, you know, or look more proactive, look at alternative ways of resolving disputes outside, you know, just using that hammer and nail method. So I think I'll bring my introductory conversation to a close at that point. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
so thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really, really nice listening to you. And of course, I know that our mentors have also gotten so much knowledge from what you've said so far.
I think your mic is muted. I can't seem
I've
to
had this
hear
knowledge
you.
myself. I'm part of those lawyers who have refused to do the registrations for some of these are names that we use. And I think I should do that. Mr. Mosa, please, is the intangible nugget still available? I want to steal that. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for that eye opener. And I believe that a lot of lawyers who also listen to this after now will also learn to trademark some of these names that we put to ourselves and grow with it. Thank you so much, sir. Okay, so we want to go on to our next mentor for today. Two more mentors, and these are two phenomenal ladies who have been doing great job. So our next mentor for today is, I think I mispronounced her name earlier. We're going to be having Ahamela Fuda give us her own take, her opening statement on today's topic. Please, Ahamela Fuda, over to you. And I hope I got it correctly now. Kindly correct me if I did not. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Amel Fudatala, no problem. It's a pleasure to be here today. Tala. Hello. Hello.
Yes, we can.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Okay. It's a
Okay.
pleasure to be here today. I will not get back to what the other mentor have already mentioned. It was really interesting and insightful. I will be focused on the aspect that people rarely think about as an IP strategist, because I'm more focused on IP strategy on my daily job. I've observed that most of the people, when it comes to talk about intellectual property, generally people just think about trademark or patent most of the time. We know that intellectual property are creation of the mind, but creation of the mind refer to invention, distinctive signs, original creation, designs, and so on that are used into the commerce, and each of them can be protected under patent, trademark, copyright, trade secret, as we know. But it's really important to understand that when somebody builds a business, the aim of the business is to have a competitive advantage, to grow the business, to ensure that customer can be satisfied, to have a return of investment, or to have a monopoly, technology monopoly. These are some of the expectations of entrepreneur when they launch a business. But all this can be achieved if those entrepreneurs take in consideration that intellectual property is a strategic tool that they can use to strengthen their business and achieve all their goals. It has been demonstrated that from the study made by the USPTO and UPO, that companies who have IP rights, especially trademark and patent, have 10 more times chance to successfully secure funding. So intellectual property is not something that we have to take in consideration only when we are facing litigation. We have to think about intellectual property proactively at the beginning stage of any project that we have, any innovative project. So I wanted to bring on the table few questions that are really important when we have a business regarding intellectual property. The first question is why? Why do we want intellectual property? Do we just want to have IP rights just to have assets? Because I know here in Cameroon, few persons who said, oh, my trademark is already registered at OAP, that's all. And what? You have IP right. What do you intend to do with your IP right? Do you want to collaborate with people? Do you want to use your IP right to defend your right to defend your area, to defend your advantage into the market? Do you want to use your IP right to earn money from it? Those are few questions that are really important to ask related to the why. After that, you have to ask, where do I want to protect my intellectual property? I work from OAP region, from Cameroon. That's covered 17, that is covered by OAP, and OAP has 17 countries. But if one of my clients want to maybe have right in Nigeria, it means that the client has to think that, okay, I have to extend my right in Nigeria, or I also want to do it maybe in France. But you don't have to do it just for the pleasure to do that. You have to do it because you have interest in those regions. Maybe you have already started selling your product in those regions and you see that things are moving well. You have some people who are interested by your brand. Maybe they want to obtain license and such things. So according to that, you have to ask the next question, how much all this can cost to me? But when you ask the question, how much, you have to ask yourself, am I able to manage all this myself? Because if you are based in Nigeria, it means that you can directly file an application in Nigeria. But if you are based in Nigeria and you want to extend your right in OAP region, okay, you cannot do it directly. It means that you need a local IP attorney. You have to take in consideration all the charges around this project in order to ensure that your company can support all these costs. Because sometimes people are starting being engaged on IP project without even measuring the cost that is related to the project. And when they are already at a certain level, they just observe that they no more have money. And this situation is not good, because if you have already finished your money for registration and actually like that, you are facing a litigation, how are you going to enforce your right? You always think about having small money so that if you are facing litigation and you have a prior right, a registered trademark or a patent, you can call a local attorney in order to see how to defend your right and preserve your market share. So it's important to know how much you have to use to manage your IP during a year. After that, the next question is when. When is the appropriate time to do all this? You want to go to Nigeria, you want to go to South Africa, according to the world information collected previously. Do you think that is something that you can do next week, in 3 months, or next year? You also have to take in consideration the different approach that you can use in order to extend your right, because you can choose to do a direct application. If it is somebody who is based in Cameroon and who wants to go to Nigeria, you can do a direct application. But in some circumstances, somebody who is in Cameroon who wants to extend right in Ghana, for example, can use Madrid system to extend the right. But when you use Madrid system, you also have to take in consideration all the challenges around Madrid system, because Madrid system is cheaper, I agree with you, but Madrid system is longer. So if through the period that you are registering your trademark through Madrid system, you need something like an official certificate or any proof of your application in Ghana, you have to take in consideration that maybe you will need to pay supplement fees to a local IP attorney based in Ghana so that he can give you few documents that can help you to maybe to continue the procedure that you are engaging actually before having the final decision from the WIPO for the international registration. This is the situation that I've already faced many times with clients, because when you tell to the clients that international registration through Madrid system is 36 months, depending on the region, the client just say, okay, because he see that the price is really low. But after, it's the same client who will come after 1 year to say that, oh, actually, I urgently need one document in order to do this or that. So all these elements are really important to appreciate before. And last but not the least, is really, really important to define which IP right fits the best for your business need. Because just saying that I will register a trademark without knowing if at this time it is the thing that you really need to protect, because sometimes the most urgent thing to protect is something that you have to cover by trade secret or your patent, for example. It doesn't mean that trademark is not important. Trademark is always important, indeed, but we have to understand that choosing the right IP on the right time is really important to ensure that the company will achieve the goal that he has to achieve. The last point that I want to emphasize is the aspect of IP risk. We often forget that IP risks are around us when we try to manage intellectual property within a company. We have many types of risk. We have business risks, administrative risk, innovation risk, and legal risk. One of the examples of legal risk is when a company, for example, doesn't have an IP policy. This is a risk because IP policy help you to organize the management of your IP within your team. The administrative risk, for example, is important to know that when you have an agreement with your employee, it's very important to add NDA clauses into the agreement. So these are a few aspects of IP risk that we want to enlighten today. But at the end of the course, we just want to mention that when you want to integrate IP in order to achieve your business goal, you have to pay attention to any aspect of IP development, so that you should ensure that at each step, what must be done has been done on time and has been done on the best way, so that you cannot miss something that is really important for your company. And maybe if you don't do that, you can do something that can bring irreversible circumstances for your company, and that one is not good. So this was briefly the 10 minutes that I wanted to share with you today, and I will be pleased to respond to your questions. Thank you.
Merci, madame. Perfectly done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You say it well.
You see? Thank you so much for indeed, this is what we call IP strategy. It has really, I think some things I have picked from this, and I believe that our mentees are also doing that, about the strategy to go with your IP. And I will surely look into the W's of IP registration, as you've said. It really makes so much sense. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so moving to our last one. Kindly get ready, because after our mentor, we'll be having our presenters for today, and you're having just 5 minutes for your presentation. At exactly 5 minutes, I'll cut you, do your presentation. So please use now in this time to begin to summarize everything you would say, 4 to 5 minutes. That's for our mentees who will be presenting. After our next mentor, we'll be having our presenters for today. Ensure that you do it under 5 minutes for your presentation, because I'll be cutting you at exactly 5 minutes. Thank you so much. Okay, so our last but not the least mentor for today, for our opening statement, we will welcoming Mrs. Jiipcc for her opening statement. Hello, ma'am. Nice to see you again, and welcome to this quarter.
Hello, God's love. Good evening, everyone.
Hello. Good evening.
My apologies for joining late, and hello to all the mentors that have spoken before me. I've been listening to all your conversation. Interesting topic, IP for business. So, and I believe that we have all taken different aspects of IP as it relates to business, and making it difficult for me to know where to come in from. So it's not just a repetition, but I'll just try to run through in the 10 minutes that I've been given. So the first thing I want us to understand is that IP on its own is a business model that one needs to carefully understand. Okay? So just like somebody wants to start a business, IP on its own is a business model. One needs to unbundle it to understand what aspect of it will be beneficial to your own business. So it's not just an intellectual property that is a form of protection that you offer to your business. On its own, it's a business model. Why do I say this? Because in the field of IP, you find a lot of persons that benefit from the IP business itself. Although I'm not so sure who the participants are, if they all have background in law or beyond that, I'll just give you some instances. In IP business, there are various opportunities for whether you're a designer, whether you're a performer, whether you are an author, whether you are an agent, like in the IP offices, you find agents around the IP offices, or whether you're a staff of an IP office, whether you're an inventor, or whether you're even a lawyer, an attorney. So it varies. So IP on its own, it's a business. So that's what I'm trying to say. Because it's not just about us talking about the businesses outside. It's also about us understanding me as an individual. What do I take away from today's discussion that can impact me personally, beyond me talking to others? or beyond me trying to grow other businesses out there. So the first thing you should understand is this. In the IP business, it accommodates wide and near all manner of profession you can see to think about. Whether a person is an accountant, there's what we call IP auditing. Whether a person is trained to be a manager, there are people who manage IP. Whether you create on your own, maybe you write songs and stuff like that, you yourself can benefit from an IP business. So I just don't want it to be one-sided. Everybody's considering about IP for business, and what's coming to your mind is just somebody who is selling granite out there, or an automobile company, or a phone business. It can also be about you personally. What inspires you? What do you like to do? What are your dreams? What are your goals? Do I have an IP inside of me that I'm yet to recognize? But first thing we must put on the table is the fact that IP does not protect ideas. So far, it is stuck in your head. So as you're seated there listening to me, I want you to begin to think about, is that something I know how to do? And I need to, after this class, put my pen on the table so that the business can begin. The next point I want to state is this. IP is said to be a business that follows, I wouldn't use the word trend. I would want to say like a tree. You know, like when you have a family tree, there are different branches that have come off from the tree itself. And then each branch is very important. So IP is like a tree on its own. It points a different direction. So it's all about which aspects of that tree are you standing on, or which aspects can you extend your reach to? Is it through a way of collaboration? Is it through a way you yourself, you are out there trying to like license your rights, or you are trying to exploit your own work yourself? Because sometimes people create, like so many of the mentors have mentioned, that you create work or you register work and then you go to bed. IP is all about the business itself. IP is not created to be there for people to just create, register, and then go to sleep. It's about working those rights. So when you put the rights to work, it could be through collaboration between two persons. And these are instances where you have maybe two musicians that decide to come together to do a song together. It can also be in a situation where somebody is producing maybe a leather shoe, the other person is producing the sole, and then two of them can come together to put their resources together. No money is exchanged. It's called a form of cross-licensing. You cross-license. I give you my leather, the leather I'm producing. You give me the sole of the shoes that you're also making, and together it becomes one. And then they can decide on their own to make those shoes individually. I haven't done those exchanges. Or they can decide to now sell off to another company who is now making the shoes using the leather from A and the sole of the shoe from B. So, but before we begin, because I'm really interested in, let's run it through from A to Z of business. I am a person, I want to start a business. What's the first thing that should come to my mind? Having understood that IP on its own is a business model that I need to unbundle. Where do I begin from? First, I want to identify what is that business. What is the niche for me? Why am I going into the business? Am I going into it because everybody in my neighborhood is producing water? There's nothing wrong in that. I've heard so many people say there's actually an issue with that. If you look at the Igbo system, we call it a Igbo boy, and it is being understudied in schools like Lagos Business School. That's why I said IP on its own is a business model. Whatever is making Lagos Business School to have that as a model, whatever is making, I think, Harvard to also have that as a business model, that helps you to understand that IP on its own is a business model. So when you want to begin, the question now is this. I need to identify my business. What form of business am I going into? The first one, is it a trade business? Is it like products? Is that something I can produce behind my backyard that somebody knows or doesn't know about? Is that something I can secretly produce and people can't guess what and what I put together to make it? Number two, is it a service? So I need to maybe go to the studio, or I need to maybe go to school to become a doctor before I can render the service. That's another angle. Now, if it is a product that you can produce, my next question is this: what is the reach? How do you want to enter the market? What amount of money do you have to even start this business? Do you have huge amount of money to say, okay, I want to become international, my first day of business? Is it even advisable? It's always advisable to start small. And I think one of the mentors already mentioned that at the onset, sometimes people don't have a particular name they are sure they want to use. They are still testing the waters. So at the beginning, you are in that space of testing the waters. Is this name good enough? Is it sellable? Can I enter the market with this name? Is it something that people can remember? Is it sweet to hear? Or is it difficult to pronounce? So these are things you must put into consideration while trying to coin a name for yourself. Is it a name that is so popular that everybody or somebody somewhere is making use of it? So you need to do your homework, search the internet, especially because now businesses are now all over the internet. Is somebody somewhere using it? Why should you do this? Number two, because tomorrow you may decide to expand your business. You may have started from a roadside. Tomorrow there could be opportunity to expand or to collaborate with somebody who is in another country or even another parts of your state. Is that a good time to now want to change your name? Or should you, at the beginning, have taken cognizance of this? So that as soon as you see that the business is beginning to grow, you make some adjustments. It's no longer because I just started, I don't have funds to make registrations, so I've not registered, or I'm still testing the waters, and you continue to test the waters until you become popular and somebody steals your name and runs with your name, whereby you now have to pay huge amounts of money to get back your name. So IP is all about being strategic. What point do I do what? How do I begin? At what point do I change my strategy? At what point do I bring in people into my business? That takes me to IP collaboration. When you have an IP asset, for instance, you don't just keep it in your wardrobe. Sometimes you may be exploiting personally. It might not be to the best, the best of your ability. There could be somebody else that finds the need of what you have produced, that is interested in running off with it. And then that person, because of their background or the financial or their finances, maybe they have huge amounts of money, or there's a knowledge known to them that you don't know about, or there's a new use your product or service can be put into. Collaborating with such a person can make your business go from a local business to an international business within a very short moment, within the space of 1 month, 2 months. So IP is also about, oh, it's my IP, so I'm embracing it, I'm covering it from others, I'm shielding it from others, I won't let anybody take it, I won't let anybody use it. No. Sometimes we do what we call open collaboration. I go back to the Igbo system of business, and I'll describe it a little bit. In the Igbo setting, you find a rich businessman. I want to use Obi Kubana, for instance. He brings in young boys from different places in his village to come and understudy his business model. Remember, IP on its own is a business model. They unbundle this business, bringing in their local senses, because most of these guys may not be fully educated in the first place. They bring in their knowledge, and then they add it to whatever Obi Kubana has on the table. And before you know it, open collaboration helps the business to expand faster. You find somebody amongst these boys whose job is just to stand in front of Alaba market and is screaming because he has some oratory gifts or because he has some advertising skills, which he didn't know in his father's house. He has brought that into Obi Kubana's business, for instance. And then he's out there shouting and shouting, come and buy 1 to take 10 free, you know, and it sounds funny. Sometimes I say this because as you walk on the street of Lagos or any other part of Nigeria, you see such persons in the market. That person, as he's standing on his own, has brought in some new elements into this business that can also make this business to grow faster. So this is the secret of most Igbo businesses. Whereas some people will say, why are you joining a business? Or why are you going into a pure water business? Igbos, for instance, would rather have the same kind of business on the same street of the market. Governments never established the market from the beginning and structured it in a way that automobile sellers stay on this part, people that are selling maybe carpets stay on this side. No, it was designed by Igbos. Igbos would go into a market system, and then on their own, the first person rents a shop and he wants to sell, say, mechanical spare parts. And then the next person comes and says, oh, this man is already selling mechanical spare parts, so let me start selling biscuit and granuts. No. You see another person in that line of business, desirous of that line of business, coming and stays in the next shop. Now, the first owner is not scared of this second person. They begin to collaborate. How? You visit shop A, you need something, you don't have it. What do? You run into shop B, you add extra money to it. Maybe the person is selling the parts for 100 naira. You have added your own 50 naira. You didn't take transports. You didn't have to send somebody for you. You didn't have to do any advertisement. Now you have made extra 50 naira. And I'm using 50 naira just as an example, because I know sometimes the money is doubled. It's double the price or even over the price. Now, this extra money, what happens to it? It is invested back into business A. Assuming business A's capital was 500,000 naira. You can imagine what happens in the space of 1 year, engaging through this kind of business model expansion, trying to unbundle it to see what is on the inside. This collaboration leads to further funding for the business. Before you know it, the shop would not contain the number of boys inside of it, and they need to expand more. So you see, the boss said to one person, oh, you guys stay 2-3 shops away from me, still selling the same product or still selling the same business. And then before you know it, you've grown a chain of business. So what IP helps to do in that circumstances, it brings the good in a particular business, extend it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more person. And then we come together as a pool. You know what they say about water? A drop of water makes an ocean. You continue to drop, continue to drop. So IP is not about, I have registered an IP, I'm keeping it to myself. It's about what collaborations can you make out of it. Now, when you are collaborating, no doubt, misunderstandings will always ensue. What's the best option? Should we go to court? I'm not one of those people that would say, okay, let's go to court. Why? IP business is a very sensitive one. Let's go into the music industry, for instance. Somebody has done a song. We know how many years it's supposed to last based on this new Copyright Act. And then there's a misunderstanding. Okay, let's use the instance of the Gogo Bongo. If you decide to now say, okay, that a brain jotter, you need to hold him responsible for infringing on your music. What do you think would have happened? We live in a community where people have this sense of appreciating people. Papa has been there for over the years. Nobody remembered him. His song had been lying fallow, and thanks to Brain Jotter, you and I wouldn't have known of a song called Gogo Gongo. So sometimes when you see an IP infringement, it's not always right to run to the courts to say, I want to sue this person. Sometimes an infringement is a blessing in disguise. I use another example. You are into a makeup business, and then you see somebody online using your brand to demonstrate how to rub powder, and then you run off to sue the person rather than make him your brand ambassador, knowing fully well that people are seeing him or her on YouTube and want to patronize your product. So I'm just taking it away from what has already been said, because this other aspect looks like it's a bit silent, so that we have a good balance of, even in cases of infringement, it's not all the time you run to the court. Now, assuming but not considering that, okay, there's a serious misunderstanding or based on the engagement between two persons, and we need to get to the bottom of it. Should I do litigation or should I do arbitration? I'll suggest you do ADR, alternative dispute resolution. One of them can be arbitration, can be mediation, it can be negotiation. And why is this important? It helps to save the business. You don't go to court spending money, wasting time, wasting resources. Imagine it's a product that fades after 10 years and you're going to court. Maybe you designed a particular hat that and it's raining and people are buying it now. And then you go to court over that misunderstanding. Before your 10 years, 2 of you go to your village to go and wear the remaining hats in the store. I hope it's making sense to someone. So these are things we look at in IP business. And then we don't treat IP business like ordinary businesses or ordinary things we see out there, or the things that apply to other businesses or civil suit, like I always say, is even different. That it has to do with personal rights. So you consider the person who owns the rights. How long does this person still have to live? Like in the case of Bongo, if the man had chosen to make trouble out of the good that was done to him, I don't know if by now he will still be alive considering his age and other factors. But he chose to see it as a blessing, as much as I understand from what has happened on social media. And since then, so many people have also been going to say, Papa, thank you. We appreciate from this your song. We too have made money. So that's the beauty of IP. You don't take it alone. You don't keep it alone. So in as much as we're advising or we're encouraging people, protect your IP, shield it from infringement, police it. You also need to strike a balance. IP originally was designed to allow creativity. We don't stifle creativity by all means. If you look at in the case of copyright, I love the Copyright Act that makes us understand. I don't know if it's Section 4 now or 2.4, I'm not so sure, that talks about even if it's an infringement, copyright still subsists. Remember when we talk about originality in copyright, it is to the extent that the work is original based on some jurisdiction, like if it is India. If it has an iota of infringement, like you copied the song from someone or you took some line from someone's song to do your own, you can't get copyrights. That IP will not stand. But the Nigeria Copyright has allowed huge flexibility, understanding that IP on its own is no longer for one man person. It's no longer for you take it all. Yes, it is good to protect it so that when you want to collaborate, you can get your money and nobody's infringing unnecessarily. But sometimes you need to take a step back, understand the kind of infringement. Is it a blessing in disguise? Or is it one that I need to sue to get my money? On the other hand, there are businesses that are not doing well. And it's not until they notice an infringement and decide to sue. They buy into the other business and I'll say, oh, okay, let's drop the case. Why don't you become our partner, be supplying us or be doing this? And business is growing. So it can just be a threat to say, oh, I'm going to sue, I'm going to take you people to court, yet you don't really mean it that way. So finally, before I leave the call, or rather I hope to stay around for a little while, when a business has started growing, like I said, it's all about following the money. Where is the money going to? IP is strictly about the money. We're interested in money. We're not interested in litigation. We're not interested in serious infringement cases. We're not interested in creating an IP or hiding it under the pillow. We're interested about who is going to make that IP work. You that you made it, you put it under your pillow. But your neighbor needs to steal it to put it in the market for the economy to grow. Your neighbor needs to infringe on it for something good to come out of it. And that is why the law also allows for things like compulsory licensing. If you can prove and show that this person is sitting on his IP, he doesn't want to work it. It's also provided for in the new Copyright Act, is in the Patent Act, is in the Trademark. So you see that's is in the Patent Act. And so you see it allows for, for creativity to continue to expand, like where you have that open kind of collaboration or innovation. So it is important when you start growing your business, the things to pay attention to is to have like your research and development unit, depending on if it is a product that you are providing or if it is a service that you have. Then you should know that for service, you need to continue to read book. If you're a doctor, you need to continue to acquire more knowledge, specialize in various areas. Like if you're a lawyer, you're into property law, you need to expand into arbitration. You need to expand into, what's it called now? Immigration, so that you can get more juicy cases or files to deal with and then get more money. So you need to expand. If it is a product, you need to start considering, I'm based in Ibadan. My product, nobody knows it in Lagos. Find a business in Lagos that can collaborate and two of you can expand and then it keeps going on and on. Now, IP professional, get them close to you. Get proper advice. And don't look for those that are always too forward to make a name for themselves. Remember I said IP on its own is a business. And when you unbundle it to find different actors, amongst them are lawyers. Some are interested in making name for themselves rather than giving you the best for your business. Like I've said, it could be an infringing case, but that infringement is actually a blessing in disguise. So you need to sit back, calculate well before you launch an attack. Be on the lookout for infringers. I've also mentioned that in an infringing case, you can find a situation where a business that wasn't popular becomes popular after the infringement. License out, cross-license, I've made reference to that. Have an IP audit. You should always have an auditor who is going to check, is this my IP dead? Is it worth renewing? Should I drop this one? Should I finance this one? Should I advertise this one more? These are things you want to consider. Know when to renew your IP. If it's the one to abandon, if it's the one to license out because you're not making money out of it, look for another business that needs that thing you have produced and can add it to whatever they are producing to make a new product. Know when your new ideas are birthed and also protect them as fast as possible. Know which IP is no longer profitable and jettison them. Above all, you should know that advertisement is also crucial and important. It's not until you have the capital to go on radio, to go on television, before you have done your advert. If you run a good social media account, you can put up your products. If it is a service, you can put out your brands out there for people to see it. Because today, we live in a global village. You don't know who needs that business far away in Europe, and you're here in Nigeria. Just a click on Facebook can show you off. So make sure you put yourself out there, be visible as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you. This is almost like a masterclass when it comes to IPs and collaborations, and how, of course, you can optimize and use difficult situations when they come. And I really agree. There are times where most lawyers or advisors are quick to look at how to battle when there's some infringements. So sometimes we need to decide what time do we work through it, and what time do we allow it to just play its course. So thank you so much, ma'am. So quickly, we want to go through to our presenters. We'll show you that this class will end in record time. So we'll try to go through everything quickly. After our presenters, we'll take the questions alongside our mentors' feedbacks on the presentations. So I want to start with group one, please. Group one, over to you, presenter. 5 minutes, and I will, of course, be timing you. Over to group one, presenter, please.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me. Good evening, sorry.
Yes, we can
Good
hear you.
evening. Yes, we can.
Thank
Yeah,
you
good
very
evening.
much. All right. So I'm going to be presenting now. So basically, my group's topic is intellectual property for businesses. So I'm just going to run through because of our time. So we were asked to speak on what patent is, what trademark is, why they should be protected, and also IP franchising and licensing with exporting. IP licensing, IP franchising, and IP exporting. So I'll just be giving a quick definition of what patent is. And here we have a patent is a grant by a country to an inventor or an investor of a monopolistic rights to preclude other persons from exploiting his invention. And according to the World Intellectual Property Organization, it defines patent as a document granted upon application by the government or a government agency which describes the invention and creates a legal framework upon which the patent invented can only be exploited by the authorization of the owner. So basically, patent is a right given to someone who makes a work or someone who designs something, someone who brings up something new, and it stops people from infringing on it. So before you can use this patent or this creation that the patentee has, you have to ask for permission, or else it will be considered an infringement under the law. So reasons why people should register their patent. Here we have competitive advantage. With a patent, a business can prevent competitors from providing similar products. So one of the major features or characteristics of patents is that it must be new, novelty. It's a must. So before a person can create something, before a person can patent something similar to yours, the person must have improved on it. So a person cannot come and patent something that you have created. Before it can be be registered. It has to be new or improved on. So it prevents, when you register your patent, it prevents people from infringing on it and people from using that particular this thing without your permission. It also protects your invention. I mean, like, obviously, like we've heard, we need to prevent people from using unauthorized people. So when it is registered, it prevents people from using that mark. And when it is infringed upon, it brings money. It basically helps your business or helps your patent. And asset evaluation. Patents can significantly increase the value of your business and also attract investors, because with patents, somebody else cannot make that exact same similar design or whatever you patented and register it. So it gives the investors, it brings and generates more investors for your business. A case study we have here is Apple, and it's the Apple slide to unlock feature that was patented. It was patented, so no company or no phone brand could necessarily use that particular thing without the authorization of Apple. So I'm going to be moving on to a brand that didn't patent their work, and that was Bright Brothers, the people that invented the airplanes. So basically, they didn't register their patent and they lost revenue because, I mean, there are a number of other airplane brands now that have stolen their work without them being recognized. So we're moving on to trademark. A trademark is a type of intellectual property consisting of recognizable designs and signs, basically. So why should a trademark be registered? It builds trust and loyalty. It helps the consumers to differentiate between, this is the original, this is the fake, or this is the one that I want to get and I don't want to get the other one. And it also gives legal protection. Here, a case study we have for a registered trademark will be Coca-Cola versus the Coke company. I mean, everybody knows Coca-Cola. Even right now, there are a lot of people that still infringe on Coca-Cola's trademark. And a business that didn't trademark their slogan is Nike, the Just Do It slogan. So I'll be moving on to IP licensing. IP licensing is basically when the owners of a particular IP give another person a go ahead to use that particular IP for a particular period of time and not for a long period of time. And here we have an example will be Disney. Then I'll be moving on to IP franchising. Franchising is more broad, it's broader than licensing. Franchising gives them, they use the trademark, the copyrights, everything about that brand, and they work closely with the particular brand that they're marketing, like McDonald's, for example. But bringing it down to Nigeria, I'll talk about like Burger King. They came to Nigeria recently. There is also Krispy Kreme, there was KFC. All the brands in Nigeria, they are not the original, they are just franchises of the actual intellectual property owners. They're moving on to IP exporting. IP exporting is transferring the license to other countries. Like our mentors have spoken, they mentioned about, they spoke about how IP is territorial. So when you give somebody else in another country, it's basically IP exporting. And an example we have here is Doobly, a laboratory export audio technology. Thank you very much. I think I'm done.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for also trying to beat the clock with that. In such short time, that was phenomenal presentation. Great job to Group 1. I really, really enjoyed that presentation. It was really nicely done. Nicely done. When someone gave a very good explanation to a brief explanation to IP licensing in few words, and it made so much sense. So thank you so much for that. Okay, over to Group 2, please. 5 minutes as well.
All right, good evening, everyone. I am Excellent Oloko, and I'm from Group 2, the presenter for Group 2. So please, before going ahead to my presentation, I would like to really appreciate the mentors that have spoken earlier for the very insightful knowledge that I shared on IP. And please, I would like to share my screen so that I can bring forth my presentation. But I can't do that now because of that there's another presentation on the screen, the one for Group 1.
Okay,
Can you hear?
Group 1, please.
Yes.
If you do not mind, Adege, please kindly stop sharing your screen so that he could share. Okay, thank you. I think it's still there.
No.
Mr. Dennis, if you could help us to stop sharing her screen. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so
It's fine.
can my work be seen now? Our group work, can it be seen?
No. No.
Well, okay.
Please go ahead and start the presentation. Okay.
Okay. So in our group work, we're given the topic intellectual property in business. So I'll be very brief, just highlighting the key areas that we worked on. So we highlighted what copyright means, which is a type of intellectual property that protects original work in tangible forms of expression. That is something that we can see. And then we say that a copyright owner is the person that is the author of such property and the person that has it. So a copyright owner can be an individual or a company. So you know that under the law, a company can also be seen as an artificial person. So whereby a company is the one that creates that product and that company has been incorporated, the company can be the copyright owner. Then it can also be an individual as well. So we went ahead to highlight a real example of a case of copyright infringement, which was the Napster lawsuit, whereby Napster, a company that was created, was brought to court, by they were brought to court by Metallica company for copyright infringement. So now Napster, they were allowing peer-to-peer sharing of musics without the due authorization of the music owners. So they were brought to court that it was copyright infringement. And the court said, yes, indeed, it was copyright infringement. And although that case was settled out of court, it led to the liquidation of Napster. So that's an example of what shows the importance of copyrighting your product or the value of copyright protection. Because Napster was not allowed to continue with the art of sharing music via peer-to-peer sharing without the due authorization of those music owners. So the court said that it was an illegal act and it was an infringement of copyright. Then we went ahead to talk about industrial design. Now, industrial design covers special elements of a product that are aesthetics or ornamental. So these are the elements of a product or a company that distinguishes it from other ones. So we gave industrial right now to do with the right of the holder to control the commercial production, importation, and sale of that product. So we gave a practical example of Coca-Cola, that the Coca-Cola has the contour bottle, which is the specially designed shape of the Coca-Cola bottle. And that shape, no other company has the right, no other bottling company has the right to use that particular shape. And the contour bottle of Coca-Cola is something that was traced back to 1916 because of the efforts of other companies to try and imitate or mimic Coca-Cola. So it was causing confusion in the market, and Coca-Cola had to invest, and they patented their particular design. So another company will be able to use that particular design. That's why anytime you see the Coca-Cola, it's always in the form of the contour bottle, which distinguishes it from other soft drinks and other bottling drinks that are being made. Then we also highlighted trade secrets in our group work. I'm going very fast because of the time. We also highlighted trade secrets in our group work, which are special rights, or which is rights on confidential information that may be sold or licensed. So now in companies, there are special information. They are not information that are being let out in open because of their specific value. For instance, Google has a special trade secret, which is their search algorithm. So it's protected as intellectual property because of the special and specific value that algorithm has to Google. Then going further, we talked about criteria for trade secret information, which is that it must be valuable. So you can't just say, oh, I want to I want to protect my trade secrets. Is it valuable? For instance, how to boil water, for instance, so that is not valuable. There has to be something that is very valuable. It must be known by a limited group of persons, which are always key staffs in the company. Then it must be subject to reasonable steps taken by the rightful holder of the information. So I can't go and protect Coca-Cola trade secret or Google trade secret. It must be someone that has the right. Only the right holder can come to protect their trade secrets. Then going further, we talked about intellectual property management, which has been dealt on extensively by our mentors here. And just going further to what we said in our group, is a structured system designed to oversee the creation, protection, and commercialization of intangible assets. It has to do with the process of managing the intellectual property within your company or your organization. Then there are 4 categories of intellectual property were highlighted, which is copyright, patents, trademarks, as has been defined by Group 1, and trade secrets. Then what are the benefits of IP management? 1, competitive intelligence, meaning that it takes a lot to create something. So if you want to actually make gains from your creation, you must be competitive in creating. You can't just come and use the intellectual property of someone else without trying to give them a reward. You understand? They also talk about implementation of non-disclosure policies. They also patent portfolio management, establishment and protection of ownership, and public awareness and education, which has been very much emphasized by our group, our mentors. They also gave real examples of IP management, which is the Apple Company Incorporated. Now, Apple has made over 394.3 billion in 2023, and this is largely due to their products which have been safeguarded by IP. So, for instance, when you see the unique Apple sign, that Apple logo is something that is protected and trademarked. So, if I'm to buy an Apple laptop, once I see the Apple mark, I know that this is an Apple laptop. No other company can produce a laptop with that particular Apple logo. Then there are also process of.
Thank you.
Oh, all right, sir.
Okay, I said you could round off. You could round off.
Okay. So I will just summarize. Our work at this moment. So in conclusion, we stated the benefits of IP management, talking about measures and acquisition. So with the value of your IP, your intellectual property, you can also merge. For instance, Apple would not have any problem merging with Samsung because everybody knows the worth of their intellectual property. Let's talk about in the event of bankruptcy as well. People may want to purchase your company because of the intellectual worth it has. We talked about fundraising, which has been mentioned earlier by our mentors. We talked about technological transfer support on situations of conflict. We talk about accounting and taxation. So in conclusion, intellectual property can be said to be worth more than even physical property, and it's therefore wise to protect and use this intellectual property effectively. So as a group, we're saying that in your business, it's very important that you actually protect your intellectual property and you use the means of intellectual property as protected by the law effectively. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you again. We're so sorry that we have to rush through that. We have a lot of mentors. We've had a lot of mentors on today's call, so it's only expedient that we see how to get through all your presentations as quickly as possible so we can take our questions and ensure that we end this class as soon as possible. Okay, so I'll be going through to our questions immediately so that our mentors, please, as we read them through, you can easily answer them. But again, Group 2 presenter, great job for trying to get through their presentation. A good job to you. And that the time was reduced to a whole new level. Okay, so to our mentors on the call, our mentees had sent in questions earlier for this session from their research, their readings. So I'll quickly read them. They're in the chat box right now. Okay, according to the World Intellectual Property Organization, copyrights cannot be extended to a mathematical concept, such as the formula the formation of a formula or scientific concepts, such as a methodology initiated by a particular researcher for experiments. The question is why? And if the mathematical equation or scientific procedure can be codified, thereby making it a fixed work. Would the originator then be able to copyright it? Okay, I don't know if we still have Mrs. Amosa on the call. Okay. Is Mr. Mark still with us?
Yes, God's love, I'm still here.
Okay, sir. So what's your take on that question? Mathematical equations and scientific procedures.
Okay, well, so my answer would start from the obvious. I believe it was Mrs. Onyeka doing a presentation that IP would not protect ideas. So copyright, for instance, protect the expression of human creativity in 6 key areas: sound recordings, audiovisual works, broadcast, and artistic works. So mathematical equations and such are more of theoretical issues, and no human person really has the exclusive right to claim a mathematical equation, because when it comes to things like mathematical equations, discoveries that people make upon study, which is quite different from an expression of your human creativity. It means any other scientist who applies himself based on scientific knowledge and research will come to that same conclusion. So that is it's a fine line, because to a large extent also, if you are writing a novel also, you're applying your mind and coming up with a work. But there are certain things that part of the reason why the law would not give the monopoly right of IP protection to them is because those things are things that activities that are considered beneficial to society as a whole. So things like mathematical equations, scientific discoveries, IP rights would not necessarily extend to them. However, when you have a mathematical formulation or a scientific discovery and you have used that to create a particular useful product, then you can get a protection for that product. So assuming you get a mathematical equation and use it to design a new computer that is able to compute equations faster, or is able to maybe render graphics in a more unique way, for instance, then you can protect the process of the rendering of that graphics, but not the mathematical equation or scientific discovery that is behind it directly. So if all you did was just to observe a scientific phenomenon and and map out an equation that describes how that scientific phenomenon happens, then you will not have an IP until you incorporate it into a useful industry, a useful product. Then you can get a protection for the process that leads to creating that product. I hope this throws light. I know it's quite a complex question and it's a complex subject matter, but I hope this at least gives some light to that question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Falari has something to say.
Yes, if I may also add to what Mr. Max has said, I mean, fantastic submission. Just to quickly add that I think if we take a historical look at how the IP laws that we have today evolve, we see that IP actually has it creeps on. Well, number one, IP follows innovation, and then number two, so that what that means is that you have society innovates or people innovate, and then IP tries to catch up. So the law started with the invention of the printing press, and so the first acknowledged copyright law under common law is the Statute of Anne. And the subject matter of the Statute of Anne was the printing press. So, and that essentially covered literary works. So that would fall under the literary work category, And there are those who argue that IP is granting protection to ideas or to express ideas is wrong. is wrong in terms of is alien to nature. So there are those who argue that, and at the end of the day, what IP rights tend to do is there's this question about whether they provide a monopoly or a negative monopoly, whichever side of the divide you may fall under. So some people argue, oh, it's a monopoly. Some say, oh, it's a negative monopoly. The right to stop people from doing certain things, that's a negative monopoly. But at its core, so whether it's copyright, which started from, it was first applied to books, printed material, and then it was gradually expanded to include pictures, was expanded to include music, was expanded to include compilations as pictures and moving pictures, movies, audiovisual works, and so on. So whether it's that copyright or it's trademarks, which is the monopoly over the use of words in commercial speak, or it's with regards to patents, any of the other forms of intellectual property. What the laws try to do is to balance the interests of the public to enjoy certain works, to enjoy certain things, and the interest of the creators to extract the value or extract the value, if you may, from this intangible property. So one of the requirements, or one of the rules that the law tries to put in place is to ensure that if you're going to extract value from something, there must be innovation. So you must have created something new. And with regards to copyright, the reason why, and it's not just copyright, even with trademarks, you find the same theme that runs with trademarks, patents, and industrial designs. And it is the originality requirement. So the originality requirement changes depending on the intellectual property rights that we're talking about. So the question was particularly about mathematical inventions, but you also find scientific inventions being excluded from patent protection under the Patents and Designs Act. And the reason is because scientific discoveries, mathematical formulas, are not considered, they're considered to be expressions of what already exists. So there's that originality requirement. There's nothing, the person who comes up with a mathematical equation, has not invented something new. So that, and I use invention, pairing it with the originality requirement. So the person hasn't created something innovative, something that originated from them. When you express a mathematical equation, what you're doing is you're pretty much expressing, in numerical form or in an equational form, things that already exist. You are just expressing, like you're using language to express whatever mathematical formula. It's in the same way that the law does not provide, with regards to trademarks, trademark protection over the use of words that are in the public domain. Or if you look at Section 9 of the Trademarks Act.
I don't know if we can make it brief so that we can go into other questions as well, due to our time.
Okay, I was just trying to draw a parallel, across all the different intellectual property rights. The fact that it's the originality requirement. So once there's no originality, once that originality requirement is absent, then of course copyright protection will not be granted. And that's one of the reasons why things like mathematical equations are excluded from protection.
Okay. So as long as it is not original, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pi, and the rest are not original to the mathematician, so they cannot ask for protection based on that. Thank you so much, sir. Okay, so quickly we'll go to the next questions. Question 3. I'm skipping 2 because 2 is also mixed up in 3. Okay, according to the Freedom of Information Act 2011, Section 15(4) confidential business information can be exposed and presented, requested of a public institution if the government or the relevant authority is satisfied that exposure of such information is integral for the protection of public interest. Otherwise, trade secrets are protected by the Act. Section 15(1)(a) is now question A. Is there an existing framework used by courts or the government to ascertain whether the exposure of private commercial information is in the interest of the public to the point where it outweighs consequent commercial damage or gain for the undertaking concerned with its exposure? Okay, I think I'll still throw this to Mr. Max based on practice. Mr. Max, what do you think quickly? Is there something in the courts where we look at for frameworks to judge if this exposure is legal enough?
Okay, thank you, Godslove. This is also a very interesting question because clearly the Freedom of Information Act has a very direct bearing on intellectual property. One of the reasons why that is that in public procurement, you have to submit a tender. And in that tender, you have to disclose certain information. You have to show that you are able to, that your company is able to execute that particular contract. So in the course of doing that, you may be compelled to reveal certain trade secrets. And I think it was Group 2 who spoke about trade secrets, even though I know they had to rush through their presentation. And I tell you, apologies, I have to commend both groups for your presentation. I actually looked at your slides and I thought you did a great job, both in terms of the presentation and the content as well. So the group that spoke on trade secrets, you mentioned something which is important. Trade secrets could be anything. It could even be something as little as your supplier list or your customer list, as something as simple and basic as that, provided the other requirements for keeping that information confidential are met. That could actually qualify to be protected as a trade secret. But when you are bidding for a government contract, you might be asked, for instance, evidence of previous work done. And there could be further, maybe for instance, in an engineering work, there might be questions that the government agency wants you to answer for them to be sure that you are able to actually execute that contract. So in the course of doing that, you may actually reveal certain trade secrets of yours. So I'm just saying that that's the background to why this question is very important. So could a person simply apply to that government agency and say, on that Freedom of Information Act, give me all the documents that were tendered, all the tenders submitted for this particular work, knowing fully well that that person simply wants to steal the confidential information contained in the bids submitted by the different contractors who might be competitors in business. So what the Freedom of Information Act is saying is that it's giving a power to the government agencies to decide whether to release information or not if they consider that information contains trade secrets. So just as an aside, one of the important things that you should do as a business or someone who's advising a business is that when you are submitting confidential information, make sure you put disclaimers. So you could put a header and a footer on that page to make it clear that this section contains confidential information. That would help the government agency, for instance, to know that this particular part of the information we cannot release it because it's a trade secret. But as to your question, whether there's an existing framework used by the courts or the government to determine, make that decision, whether the information is commercial information and whether it is in the public interest, is a balancing act. But if the matter goes to court, then the burden, for instance, if it's a Freedom of Information action where, for instance, an NGO is urging the government to release information and the government says no, they would not reveal the information because they believe it contains trade secrets. The way it would be judged is that the burden is on that government agency to show why it believes that this is a trade secret and to try to show the court, what the public interest involved is. So, for instance, where the public interest involved is, assuming it's a case of corruption, for instance, and there's allegation that that contract or that whole transaction and that information was part of what was used to commit, the crime of defrauding government revenue, then the judge is going to weigh the two things and look at the need to expose and punish corruption and the need to protect the trade secrets of an undertaking. So it's not going to be an easy decision to make, but it will be based on the facts. But like I said, as a business and as one who advises a business, what you must do is in submitting those documents, you make it clear what you believe is trade secret, and the law allows that business to join in that action, even if originally they were not a party to that action, and also prove to the court that the information we have here is highly confidential, it's a proprietary trade secret, and revealing it to the public would harm our business, and that the harm that we done to our business is worse than the public interest in getting to know about that information. So it would have to be based on the facts and based on what you can prove in court. But as for whether the government already has a framework for knowing these things, I believe they do not have a framework. It's really left to the judges to create that framework. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Jiipcc, please. Mr. Jiipcc, the next question I'll be addressing it to you as someone who is in the Federal Ministry for Trade and Investment. Mentee is asking, what is there a time duration for a patent and trademark? If yes, how long? But I think I want to paraphrase that. First of all, is there a time frame for registration of a patent and trademark? Is there a duration for the patent and trademark? In the sense of, firstly, at what points can one register a trademark or a patent? What's the duration? I know for patent there's usually a duration based on the time when it must be registered. If not, one can lose that patent if that's come out to the public. Then secondly, how long can this registration take for a patent and for a trademark? And finally, what's the lifespan of a patent and a trademark?
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
I wasn't able to put that down because I'm in a public place. So I'll just ask you to remind me. But I think I remember the first one. Your question is the duration for registering trademark and patent, yeah?
Yes, please.
All right. For patent, give or take, is within 8 weeks, give or take. However, because of the bottleneck in the system, and then sometimes you find out that there might be a query on the job or on the application. Either you communicate through the agent, which is why we have agents, registered agents. So it's the agent we know, not the inventor. And sometimes because the agent perhaps lied to the supposed inventor, because in the first place, the invention is not even patentable. I don't know if you understand. And so he has taken the money and promised to produce a certificate. He begins to linger and does not take back the information to the client because he doesn't want to look like he couldn't keep to his words or terms. You understand that not every invention is patentable. You understand that there are 3 major criteria that we usually consider before we say we want to grant a patent. You also understand that there are subject matters for patent. I'm cutting off there, believing we've gone through all these things because I didn't start the meeting. So, but if somebody wants to understand it, I could go back. So these are some things that may warrant queries on the job. To then say it is under an unpatentable subject matter, or to say that we can't find enough disclosure. These are now, keywords in finding patents. Or to then say the invention is in the public domain. Or to then say the invention lacks inventive steps. So these are grounds for wanting to query a patent application. So when we are waiting and we are not responding to your queries, then it lingers on and on. But on a good day, within 8 weeks, you should get your patent certificate. That's for patent. Now, going to trademark, as per the provision of the Act, is not a one-off process. It's divided into 2. The first part is for you to get your acknowledgement letter and what to call acceptance letter. To get acknowledgement letter, it simply means we received your payment at the office, and then we are saying we are going to consider your application. Now, acceptance letter simply means we have considered the application and we have accepted your mark pending opposition. Now, the Act says that after a trademark is filed for registration and it has gotten accepted, the Registrar of Patent will cause the mark to be published in what we call a trademark journal. Now, these are periodic journals. Usually, say in a space of 3 months, your mark should be published. Like again, I'll say bottleneck in the system. And possibly because it is sponsored by government and we depend on what's it called now? The appropriation bill per year. So they want to say, okay, this is what is allotted to the trademark registry. From what is allotted, maybe 10% is for publication of journal. And there are years that will find out that money is not made available in the budget for the trademark registry to produce these journals. So in the absence of that, what happens? It means the registrar cannot cause those marks to be published in a journal. Or if the budget is yet to be passed, has to wait until it is passed, the money gets to the ministry breaks it down as per each department, and then the department has to consider, is it covered in the budget, to what extent is covered? Are they able to roll back and produce the backlogs that's already in the system and waiting? So these are the things that now causes a mark to linger. Because if we have not published marks of about 2 years ago, it's impossible to publish a mark of today. However, that's not to say there are no possibilities here and there, but generally that's what happens. However, for a person to get the acknowledgement and acceptance letter, you could get those within a space of 2 weeks, or even less, or a little bit more within a space of 2 weeks. So I'll leave that at that. So the other leg of the question, please.
Okay. What's the duration for registration of a patent and a trademark, especially when probably if it's a name to be trademarked, the name is already out there, or if it's an invention to be patented, it's already out there, although by the inventor or by the owner of this name. What grace period do they have, if any?
All right, for patent, there's what we call a grace period of 6 months. That is if the owner of the invention, that's the inventor himself, goes to say an international fair and he talks about what he has invented, like all this arts exhibition or science exhibition, they exhibit and then you tell people a little about it, not exclusively disclosed, of course, just to some extent. Such a person has that grace period to come back and register. And to be recognized that this person, that's for Nigeria now. In some jurisdiction, I think they extend to about a year. And then to then say, okay, because you exposed your work, you talked about it at the science fair, so the Act still protects you as the owner and inventor. This is because whatever is already in the public domain can't be protected. For instance, anything that is published in a book or anything that is said in the media, so far you can find it out there by whatever means, in a journal, in a magazine, wherever it is. And it forms a component to what you used to make your invention to some extent, like the inventive steps. Then one can say this invention is no longer new. The fact that the inventive step is already exposed, it affects the novelty of the work, because a patent, an invention must be what? It must be novel. That's one of the 3 criteria for patentability. So in the absence of that, you can't have it. But in a situation where it wasn't already in the public until the last 6 months that you disclosed it, during like a promotion or the science fair like I referred to, then such a person will still be protected. In the case of trademark, you don't exactly have that rule for trademark. However, you understand that we used to be under common law. We are a common law system. So there's what you call the first to use. When you're talking of patent of trademark, that's what you now have. First to use and the first to register. However, our Act protects the first to register. Sometimes, however, we can find when there is a dispute that there was a first to use whose use actually made the product or the name to become popular before someone else ran off to get registered first. So when there's evidence to this effect, then the law will kind of protect the other person. Not because it's a straightforward thing, no. And then mind you, our judiciary are also into IP per se, in terms of IP knowledge. IP matters till today, most courts will treat it like a normal civil suit. I think I mentioned that during my presentation. So these are things people must equip themselves with, information people must equip themselves with and protect themselves reasonably by knowing IP business, what risks to take, what to take to the courts, because they can just throw out your case after you spent a lot of money. Should I waste my time going to court? What are my chances? And all that. So for trademark, you can't say that because it is already out there. So the law should protect you, maybe as per grace period. It doesn't happen in the case of trademark. Thank you. The other leg, please.
Okay, the third leg, what is the lifespan of a patent and a trademark?
Okay. For patent, for most jurisdiction, I wouldn't say all jurisdiction. Remember, patent or any other form of IP are territorial. Based on the Nigerian Act, it is 20 years, which is dependent on your yearly annuity. What to call annuity is renewal. That means you service your patent. So once you have registered, every year, about the date of your registration, every year, the anniversary, you're expected to come back to the registry directly or through your agent to pay government a particular amount to say, I want to extend the lifespan of my patent. Because although it's 20 years, the 20 years is not automatic. It's not a one-off payment, but you can choose to pay, of course. On the spot, maybe the day you register, you come back and they say, okay, I want to pay for the 20 years of my renewal. But it's not automatic. What I mean is this, by way of registering, you are not protected for 20 years unless you are renewing. What really unfolds in the practice is a different story altogether. So I want to leave that for now. Now, in the case of trademark, once you register a trademark, the law protects you for 14 years. So if you have your trademark certificate, because you don't have a trademark yet, unless you have been issued with a certificate, your acceptance letter only grants you what we call passing off at law, which is a right, law under law of tort, which is also a common law right. So it just recognizes you to then say, okay, you've been using this name, and because of that, somebody else has taken over. So it doesn't really treat you as the owner, and you can't sue for an infringement. However, I haven't been issued with a certificate. The law says at the first instance, your certificate can last for 14 years without any form of renewal, like what I explained on the patent. However, after the first 14 years, then sorry, I hope I'm not mixing it up. I think it's after the first 7 years and it's 14 years. I think so. The first instance.
After the first 14.
After the first 14, yeah? 14
Yes,
years.
ma'am.
Okay. Then the next one, I think, is 7 years. So that's how you have it.
7 years first. Then
I think so. Oh, thank you.
10 years
7 years first, then it's 14. But in most jurisdiction, what you have is 10 years now because their laws have been reviewed. You know, our laws are now archaic and need also to be reviewed. So, but that is what it is as per our act as of today. Yeah, I don't know if there's another leg.
Okay, no, that's the third leg. Thank you so much. The final one. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, quickly, I'll take the next question. This is to Mr. Folarin, please. What happens in a situation where two companies have the same trade secret without any misappropriation?
Where two companies have the same trade secrets without, how did they know?
Any That was a question that came to my mind. How did they know?
So how did they know? You can't, you don't know. But I think that there was, if I may just quickly piggyback off of the question on the public procurement. No, Max took it to public procurement, which was a very brilliant step, I think. The question on the Freedom of Information Act. The person asked, I think the framing of the question had something to do with that a section of the FOIA protects trade secrets. No, I would say that's wrong. It excludes, let's say, the better way to frame it would be to say that it excludes trade secrets from the definition of documents that will be available to the public under the FOIA. So it excludes, it doesn't protect. Trade secrets in Nigeria are protected by common law. And so I would say that if two people, I mean, the question answered itself. Two companies are now, one of the ways, I mean, you can argue about, so this question is profound I'm trying to look for a short answer. There's a profundity that this question kind of presents, and that is in the sense that, so I think, for starters, that trade secrets should not be categorized as intellectual property. And the reason is that so trade secrets are not an intellectual property right. And the reason is that if you look at every other intellectual property right, there's a difference between intellectual property and the intellectual property rights. The intellectual property is the asset itself, the property. The right is the creation of law, either by statute or by case law or by custom. So if it is statute, then there's a law and act that protects that intellectual property. If it is case law, like passing off, as we've been given, by the pocket lecture that we were given a few seconds ago, or if it is by usage, and usage would also fall on, trade secrets would fall under usage. Now, each of these intellectual property rights protects specific types of property. So copyright, there are 8 categories of works that are protected by copyright. Trademarks protect brands. What you can define as brands now may include any number of things. In some jurisdictions, smell, sound, color, and so on. But it is a very specific and limited category of works. Patents protect inventions. Designs protect, the aesthetic and non-functional appearance of things. So the question is, what do trade secrets protect? It could be anything from a recipe to an invention. So there is no, in the actual sense, there is no category for determining what someone said trade secret protects secrets. No, the IP is not secret.
Exactly.
The IP is not the secret. You get it. It could be an invention. It could be, any number of things. It could be a recipe. It could be anything. It could even be subject matter that cannot be protected. That is excluded from protection by any of the other traditional intellectual property rights by the laws. So essentially, trade secrets is actually more of, and the way trade secrets work, it actually works against people to whom the secret is disclosed. So it operates within the context of industrial relationships. So I would say that trade secrets really are more of employer-employee and industrial relations than intellectual property per se. That's a bit of an academic argument. So if we recognize that there must be a relationship between two individuals for trade secrets to protect the subject matter of that relationship. It means that when you have two companies that don't know each other, that have not interacted with each other, doing their work independent of each other, there's no way that, trade secrets, if whatever it is. So the question now is, how do you know? Because you have to look at the outcome to say, okay, for this person to have produced this result, they must have used a process. So how do you know that it was your process that was used? So that kind of, is like a zero cancels zero. So if you know their process, then their process is not a secret. If they know your process, then your process is not a secret, especially if you guys are not connected to each other. So yeah, that would be my response.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
You've actually given me food for thought because it's almost like there's copyright, there's industrial rights, and then should we now have a third arm where we look at trade secrets? Because, like I said, you made so much sense with what you've said. Every other part of IP, it's easily protected. I know trade secrets almost might be the easiest to be protected, but then what laws easily protect it? So it's almost very sui generis on its own. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Okay, I think Mrs. Oyekachi has said something in the chat box. Okay, Mrs. Amosa is back with us. Oh, she's been here all along. So please, my the next question goes to you. I know this one particular topic, when I was a mentee here, you handled it so well. So I'll bring that question back to you. It's going to be 2 in 1. Is there a limit to what can be registered under patents and trademarks? I know that will take us a bit to what Mrs. Oyekachi was also trying to explain as to what can be patented and then what can be trademarked. So if you can give us probably those things that make up patentability and, in quotes, trademarkability, and then the difference between service mark and trademark. I can almost remember your explanation on what a service mark is and a trademark. It's ringing in my head right now. So I think it will also be nice for these mentees to hear it firsthand from you. So 2 things: what is trademarkable, and then what is patentable, and what's the difference between service mark and a trademark?
All right. Thank you, God's love. So sorry, I had to go off for some minutes. So when it comes to patentability, what's obtainable in Nigeria might not be obtainable in another jurisdiction. So I want us to have that in mind, that IP right is territorial in nature, and it depends on the jurisdiction. So don't assume the law for Nigeria is going to apply in US. So the laws might be kind of similar, but they may be somewhat different, because according to the US law, their own law has a broad view of patentability. But when it comes to Nigeria, there are some things that we can patent. Let's say, for example, most people like to classify the Plant Variety Act as a type of patent. But if you look at our Patent Act, it says that you can't patent things that are existing in nature. For example, plants, right? So if you look at the UX Act, what they have is they classify their patent as 3 types of patents: the plant patent, the utility patent, and design patent. But in Nigeria, plants is not really under patent, and that's why we have the Plant Variety Act separately. So some things that can be patented are things that exist automatically that there is naturally in nature. Let's say, for example, I think someone is saying something. Things that exist naturally in nature cannot be patented. Say, imagine someone submit a patent application that says how to seize oxygen from the air. Do you think that's a good invention? So imagine if people can just trap oxygen in the air and go ahead to patent it. We are going to be short of oxygen, and can lead to something very serious, right? So things like that cannot be patented. Then mathematical, I think somebody asked a question on mathematical formulas, and no, but it was linked to copyright. So mathematical formulas cannot be patented. What can be patented is things that are new, inventive, and industrially applicable. So before you file for a patent application, if you say you've invented something, what you need to look at is, number 1, does this thing fall within the subject matter of patentability? Because even if what you've invented is new, is industrially applicable, and is inventive, if it doesn't fall under the patentability subject matter, you won't be able to get a patent for it. So the subject matter is very important. You have to look at if your invention falls under that definition or that category of what can be patented. If it does, then you now want to see, can it now, or will it pass for patentability when you look at the criteria of, is it new, is it industrially applicable, and is it inventive? So when I say new, novelty in patent is absolute. That is new everywhere, not just new in Nigeria, like new everywhere. Then you have to look at the inventiveness. If you put A plus B together, will you arrive at that answer easily? If yes, so what's now the essence of giving you 20 years protection period for something that any other person can do? So it should be something that it's not so easy to know. Like, we are going to need your expertise before we can be able to say, if I put this and this together, I'll arrive at C. Then industrially applicable. Is it something that you can mass produce? Because there's no point giving you 20 years protection period for something that you can't mass produce. Right, so the benefit of this is to make the economy more viable, and people can also have access to this product. Then after your 20 years, like 20 years from the filing date, from the date you filed your application, after that 20 years expires, your product, your invention goes to the public domain, and everybody can pick it up, reinvent the wheel, add one or two things, and also go through that same process before they can get patent application. They go through that same process of does it fall within the patentable subject matter? Is it new? Is it inventive? Is it industrial applicable? Then you'll be able to get your patent at the end of the day. Then with respect to trademark, what was the question for trademark? I think you are muted. I can't hear you. You are muted. I can't hear you.
Okay, sorry, please. The difference between a service mark and a trademark.
Service mark and trademark. Okay,
Did you
so
get that, ma'am?
in case we don't know, when it comes to trademark generally, you know, we have 45 trademark classes, and we say class 1 to class 34 is for goods. Class 35 to class 45 is for services. So in the sense of trademark is, you use trademark for those that are into goods, and you use service marks for those that are into services. However, the term trademark generally also covers for both trademark and service mark, because you rarely hear people speak about service mark. Actually, what they talk about majorly is trademark, because the trademark still still does the same thing that service mark does. So you rarely see SM. So what you majorly see is the TM sign and the R sign. And the TM sign just tells give notice to the public saying that, okay, I am either in the process of registration or I intend to register this name. It doesn't give you that ownership. It doesn't give you any leverage, because if somebody else go ahead to register it before you, you can't claim ownership by using TM. Do you understand? But when you have your R sign, you can only use your R sign after you've registered and you have your certificates from the registry. So that's just the difference majorly. SM service marks is majorly for those into services. Like you are teaching, you are repairing something, you are offering services. Then trademark, you're selling goods. But like I said, the trademark also covers service marks at the same time. Is there any other question I've not addressed? I think you are muted, Goslove.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think that is it. I wanted to hear from the horse's mouth herself. Thank you so much, ma'am. And a big thank you to all our mentors for today. We have overshot our time for today, but I would say it was really worth it. It is worth it. Thank you so much. We tell you here at Jiipcc, it's all about learning, and getting so much knowledge. So please, mentees in the chat box, say a big thank you to all our mentors. Do not forget, you can follow them on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and they have so much knowledge to give. One thing I pride myself in for our mentors is the fact that, or pride Jiipcc for the mentors is the fact that our mentors would always respond if you reach out to them. It's a known fact. So on LinkedIn, on Instagram, please reach out to your mentors. Let them know you're from Jiipcc, and they'll extend to you as much courtesy as you want to be listened to. More questions if you have, you can always reach out to them. And of course, I think we still have our one-on-one with our mentors, which you can also subscribe to. Mr. Dennis will give you more information about that if you want to have a one-on-one time with our mentors. Do not forget, please take this program seriously, because you're going to learn a whole lot. This is just week 1, and it's been mind-blowing. Mary, are you okay? The knowledge was a lot today. Okay. So thank you so much as well to our mentees for an amazing presentation, for being with us from the beginning till now. Thank you so much. It's been amazing having you all. One more time, thank you to Jiipcc for this opportunity, and to another interesting quarter with Jiipcc. My name is Gustav Kamaloni, and it's been an awesome time with you all. Thank you so much, and do have an amazing weekend. Good night.